Chapter 460. On the 8th floor of the Heavenly Flame Tower, a red-robed man was practicing martial arts. His sword split apart the wind and clouds. Heavenly suns revolved around him. The Heavenly Young Book displayed its world-shaking power. In the distance, Hua Zhongdia and Yi Qingqiu were quietly watching. The Sun Volume's martial arts had once again appeared in the world. To reach the 8th floor of the Heavenly Flame Tower under the three calamities, this child's ability is truly shocking. Yi Qingqiu sighed as she watched the red-robed figure amidst the endless heavenly flames. The top floor of the Heavenly Flame Tower was a place that only those at the peak of the Great Circle could enter. The youth in front of her was able to reach the 8th floor with his 5th tribulation cultivation. That wasn't something that could be explained by common sense. He said that he was once punished by the heavenly flames for breaking an oath. Perhaps that's why he was able to reach the 8th floor, said Hua Zhongdia softly. Heavenly punishment? Yi Qingqiu frowned. Someone was actually able to survive heavenly punishment. That was inconceivable. The flames within the tower were boundless. Blue flames soared with destructive power that could burn the heavens and boil the seas. The sword within the flames was hard within the sword. Sword light flashed. The red-robed man's sword was both fast and slow. The wind and clouds were thrown into chaos. The heavenly suns rose. 9 became 1. The peak of the sword was shocking. Die, said Yi Qingqiu. Yes. Hua Zhongdia nodded. She clenched her hand and black light gathered. The flower burial tear appeared. She stepped forward and her figure flashed. Her saber split apart the heavenly flames. The saber light was dazzling. The saber and the sword clashed. Immediately after, it was fast. So fast that it fell in an instant. One saber and one sword clashed in the sea of fire. Red light and blue light moved around. It was the intersection of life and death. The moment it shone in the eyes, the calm eyes, was life like a play, or a play like life. Her sleeves twirled. A black saber came out of her sleeves. Ningchen leapt up and brandished his sword. His sword spun and his body spun, shaking the saber light. The clashing of the saber and sword let out ear-piercing screeches. The clash became more and more intense. Above the two of them, the sound of swaying chains resounded throughout the Heavenly Flame Tower. This shocking phenomenon was the world's response to the peak of the saber and sword. Nirvana, a sword of nirvana, a magnificent confrontation unfolded. Soon after, an endless stream of swords shot out. Hua Zhongdia calmed herself down. She turned her sleeves, held her sword and slashed out. The peak of martial arts reappeared in the world. Snowflakes drifted about. Black light surged from the blade, breaking through the heavenly flames and surpassing the limits. It was like a butterfly breaking out of its cocoon as it soared into the 9 heavens. The collision of the two extremes caused an instant of silence. Soon after, raging waves roared out. The frightening shock waves made it difficult for space to contain them. The entire Heavenly Fire Pagoda actually showed signs of collapse. 2 lunatics. Yi Qingqiu's expression changed slightly. She took a step forward and instantly entered the battle. She condensed her essence and flipped her palm, suppressing the violent and chaotic aftermath. Are the two of you trying to destroy the Heavenly Fire Pagoda? Yi Qingqiu glared at the two of them and reprimanded them with lingering fear in her heart. Seeing this, Hua Zhongdia stepped forward and kicked a certain someone, yelling, "It's all your fault. Don't you know how to restrain yourself?" Ningchen waved his hand and put away his sword. He smiled helplessly and said, "All right, it's all my fault. I won't do it again." Reason. Since he was 4 years old, he had stopped believing that women were reasonable creatures. Academy head Senior Sister Dai, is there anything you need from me? Ningchen collected his thoughts and looked at the two of them. Let's talk outside. After saying that, the Academy chief turned around and walked down the stairs. Ningchen and Hua Zhongdia followed. The former whispered, "Senior Sister Dai, has the Supreme Heaven Pill been sent over?" The latter whispered back, "Yes, but the primitive emperor hasn't broken through to the supremacy realm yet. He probably didn't dare to take it." The former said, "Of course not. The primitive emperor is very scheming. The Academy suddenly gave him such a big gift. It would be strange if he didn't suspect anything." The latter said again, "Such a good Supreme Heaven Pill was wasted just like that." While speaking, Hua Zhongdia's expression flashed with regret. Before sending the pill, this kid had secretly opened a trace of the spiritual seal. As long as the primitive emperor didn't take it in time, the spiritual energy of the pill would quickly dissipate. To be honest, the Supreme Heaven pill isn't as magical as the legends say. The primitive emperor will definitely step into the great perfection realm. It's just a matter of time whether he has the Supreme Heaven pill or not. In comparison, the Supreme Heaven pill has more hidden dangers. The Mizar imperial family is different from the academy. The academy has the academy head. Whoever wants to take the Supreme Heaven pill must first weigh their own ability. Although the primitive emperor is very patient, it has also become his flaw. No one is afraid of a dying emperor. Therefore, there are definitely a lot of half-supremacy experts eyeing this Supreme Heaven pill in the world. If nothing goes wrong, someone will soon help the academy to find some trouble for the primitive emperor. Ningchen said as he walked. Junior brother. Yes. You're really evil. Hey, well said. On the second floor of the Jingluan Pavilion, the stage was empty. The academy had already released the news that the opera singer was severely injured by Hua Zhongdia. Therefore, the opera singer's voice could no longer be heard in the academy. The three old men sighed as they sat below the stage. The days when there was no drama to listen to were really boring. On the first floor, the scholar was still reading. It seemed that no matter when, the scholar never put down the book in his hand. It was said that this scholar was the chief student 100 years ago, and the chief teacher 30 years ago. Now he was sweeping and doing odd jobs. There were many weirdos in the academy. The three bored old men, the female devil who used a knife, and the bookworm who read books. Compared to these people, Ningchen thought that he was still normal. At least he was more normal than them. When the moon was dark, the three people came. In front was the academy head. Behind was the female devil and the normal man. The scholar bowed and continued to read. The female devil mocked him as usual. The scholar smiled and didn't bother about it. The normal man nodded and smiled in a friendly way. On the second floor, the three old men saw the arrival of the academy head and stood up to greet him. Ning Chun was the lowest in seniority and was ordered by the female devil to bring chairs for them. Miss Dai, aren't you going to sing? One of the three old men asked with expectation. Hua Zhongdia shyly hugged the arm of the man next to her and said, My junior brother won't let me sing. The three old men's gazes immediately became unfriendly. They looked at a certain person and said unhappily, Hey kid, Miss Dai hasn't married you yet. Young people these days are really immoral. They even tried to steal people from the academy. Senior. Don't call us senior. What senior? Are you talking about the generation that died before us? Ningchen didn't say anything. He knew that there were no normal people in the academy. Others were arrogant because they were unreasonable. But these weirdos didn't know what was reasonable. Ningchen, a supreme being has gone south. I Chingqiu didn't care about these people's nonsense and said seriously. Ningchen's eyes darkened. He immediately restrained his emotions and looked at Hua Zhongdia beside him. He said gently, Senior Sister Dai, sing a play. I want to hear it too. Okay. Hua Zhongdia nodded. She got up and walked to the inner hall. She took some rouge and put on yellow flowers in front of the mirror. When did this happen? Ningchen slowly asked under the stage. Yesterday, because of the conflict between Hua Zhongdia and him. I was worried and sent people to keep an eye on him, replied I Qingqiu. Ningchen was silent. After a moment he said, Tonight, after listening to this play, I'll leave the academy with senior sister. You're also leaving? I Qingqiu's eyes flashed with surprise. Yes. This was originally a dangerous move. I'm worried about senior sister leaving by herself, said Ningchen calmly. Think about it carefully. Once you and Hua Zhongdia appear together, you'll be facing a true supreme being in the future, reminded I Qingqiu. I understand. Ningchen nodded. He didn't care what Hua Zhongdia's reputation was outside. Although this demoness had a bad temper, and was sometimes good and sometimes bad, she had never said no to his matters. When he asked her to help, she would help him. When he asked her to fight, she would fight. She even helped him lure out the Red King's murderer. She was willing to hide her strength, and was injured by the Dark King. He knew how difficult it was for such a fearless and arrogant demoness to do all this. So he wouldn't shrink back just because his enemy was a supreme being. He didn't like to be taken advantage of. But he also didn't like to owe people favors. The Academy had given him the heavenly tomes, and he had returned the Academy's peace. Hua Zhongdia had lowered herself for him, and he would face the impending calamity with her. In the inner hall, not long after, Hua Zhongdia finished her makeup and walked out in a bright red costume. At this moment, her beautiful face was enough to make all living things go crazy. Her sleeves beat the drums. The play began. The audience was silent as they watched the woman on the stage blossom into her most beautiful moment. Suddenly hearing the sound of the golden drum and the painted horn, it awakens the lofty aspirations of my heaven-breaking gait. Thinking back to those days when I rode on the peach blossom horse, the blood of the enemy splattered all over my skirt. I have to fulfill my duty as long as I am alive. How can an inch of land belong to others? Her beautiful figure danced, her sleeves fluttering in the wind. The final play of the Academy echoed through the night. From now on, there would be no more female performers in the Academy. After the play, the two of them left. They didn't even have time to say goodbye to Qi Yanxia. Junior apprentice brother, once I become a supreme being, I'll kill anyone who dares bully you, said Hua Zhongdia. Her voice was soft, but it contained an unprecedented firmness. I'll remember that. But senior apprentice sister, you have to hurry. I have many enemies, many, smiled Ningchen. In the east, the first rays of dawn illuminated the land, driving away the last of the darkness. Just at this moment, an azure-white figure slowly walked over. Each step was steady, and a powerful aura shook heaven and earth. The space around him constantly twisted, making his figure even more blurry. In the pavilion at the center of the lake, Yi Qingqiu's expression froze. She looked to the north. He had finally come. The head of the 13 great bandits of the Central Plains, Mo Qingbai. In the blink of an eye, this azure-white figure arrived at the pavilion. Looking at the woman in front of him, he smiled. Esteemed Qingqiu, it's been a long time. It's been a long time. Yi Qingqiu's expression didn't change. Mo Qingbai picked up a cup of tea in front of her and drank a mouthful. Good tea. It's been a long time. Esteemed Qingqiu's tea skills have reached a new level. Mo Qingbai, you didn't come to the Academy just to drink tea, right? Asked Yi Qingqiu. Of course not. Mo Qingbai put down his teacup. His smile faded. I came to see this old friend of yours and kill Hua Zhongdia while I'm at it. Chapter 461. 10 years ago, the Saber God went north. Of the 13 bandits in the north, 4 were killed and 1 was crippled. 10 years later, Reverend Qingbai went south to kill the Saber God. The pavilion in the middle of the lake was overflowing with killing intent, as the two reverends faced each other. A moment later, Mo Qingbai chuckled and left. Yi Qingqiu waved her hand and pointed at the blue bird. The blue bird sent a warning to the two. In White Emperor City, Hua Zhongdia looked at the blue bird in front of her. A strange light flashed through her eyes. Boss, your price is too outrageous. 7,000 taels is enough to buy a prince's mansion. On the side, the two were haggling. Ning Chen's expression was full of dissatisfaction. Sir, give me a price. This is a blessing. If I wasn't in a hurry, I wouldn't be willing to sell it, the big-bellied profiteer said with a smile. 1,000 taels, Ning Chen said without hesitation. The big-bellied profiteer's expression stiffened. His smile disappeared, and he turned to leave. Ah, what a pity. I originally wanted to give more, but I didn't expect this person to be so impatient. But it doesn't matter. In any case, the imperial city lacks everything, but it doesn't lack houses, Ning Chen muttered to himself. When the big-bellied profiteer heard this, he stopped and unwillingly turned back. He looked at the young man in front of him and said in a low voice, Sir, if you really want to buy it, for 1,000 taels no less. 3,000 taels, that's all I have. I don't have a tael more. All right, boss, can you provide a meal tonight? Ning Chen took out a stack of banknotes and handed them over. The big-bellied profiteer's expression changed again and again. He gritted his teeth and took the banknotes. I'm going away tonight. About dinner, sir, you should think of another way. After saying this, He slapped the deeds into Ning Chen's hand and turned to leave. He didn't want to stay a second longer. Boss, take care. Good people are rewarded. Ning Chen waved his hand and said goodbye. The big-bellied profiteer's back trembled. He immediately sped up and left this place that made him sad. Hua Zhongdia walked up and asked in confusion, "How do you know he's in a hurry to sell his house?" His eyes were eager and he was wavering. In addition, he came in a hurry, but his clothes were neat and formal. He clearly has something important to do. Ning Chen casually replied. "It's a pity you don't go into business," Hua Zhongdia said. "Heh." Ning Chen chuckled and said, "Let's go in. This place is not far from Yang Imperial Palace. It's a good place to watch the show." Hua Zhongdia nodded and followed him into the house. The quiet courtyard was paved with bluestone. The main hall was clean and spacious, directly facing the courtyard door. Behind it were the side rooms. There were a total of 6 rooms, and they were also very clean. It seemed that the owner had just moved out. Hua Zhongdia took off her shoes, revealing her fair feet. She immediately walked to the bed and lay down with her arms and legs spread out. Junior brother, accompany senior sister to go shopping and buy some rouge and face powder. "I don't have any money," Ning Chen said honestly. Hua Zhongdia was stunned. She sat up and asked in confusion, "Didn't you say that you didn't have any money to fool him?" "No, I really don't have any money left," Ning Chen said honestly. "Junior brother, come here," Butterfly in the Flower said with a bright smile. Ning Chen felt that something was wrong, but he still walked forward obediently. It was broad daylight, and the world was clear. Could this she-devil still eat him? Seeing Ning Chen coming, Hua Zhongdia rushed over and strangled his neck with her arms. She said angrily, "How dare you buy such an expensive house with such little money? Don't you know that your senior sister needs to buy rouge and face powder?" "Senior sister, I can't breathe." Ning Chen struggled and said with difficulty, "I don't care. I want to buy rouge and face powder." Hua Zhongdia's arms were getting tighter and tighter. She threw herself at him and threatened unreasonably, "You don't have any money?" Ning Chen was in no mood to enjoy the beauty in his arms. He forced himself to open a gap and gasped for breath. "You are so smart. Can't you think of a way?" Hua Zhongdia tightened her arms again and said angrily, "Let go of me first." "I'll think of a way now," Ning Chen said with difficulty. Hearing this, Butterfly in the Flower loosened her arms. The anger on her beautiful face immediately disappeared, and a sweet smile appeared. "No rush. Sit down and think slowly." Ning Chen rubbed his neck, that was red from being strangled. He helplessly sat at the side. It was true that a single coin stumped a hero. When he was young, he had heard stories about those heroes who flew around, as if they always had an endless amount of money to spend. They never had to worry about money. As expected, the legends were all lies. He could also fly around now, so why did he always have no money? "Senior sister, the academy head just sent a message." "What did he say?" Ning Chen asked. "Mo Qingbai is coming. He's probably looking for me all over the world," Butterfly in the Flower said indifferently. "Is he alone?" Ning Chen asked again. "How is that possible?" Disdain flashed in Butterfly's eyes. "I killed 4 of the 13 great bandits and crippled 1. Aside from Mo Qingbai, there are 7 left. They are all on their way here." "Just in time. The person who sent the money is here." Ning Chen's lips curved. He was in a rare good mood. "That's right. Why didn't I think of that?" Butterfly in the Flower's eyes brightened. She immediately hugged him and gave him a kiss. Her smile was enchanting. Ning Chen raised a hand to wipe his face. His hand was red. "Female rogue. When are we leaving?" asked Butterfly in the Flower. "Tonight. I'm resting now." Ning Chen spread his arms and collapsed on the bed. After dealing with the matter of the 3 kings, he had cultivated in the Heavenly Flame Tower for nearly a month. He hadn't even had a chance to catch his breath before leaving the academy. He still had to fight at night. "Do you need a senior sister to serve you?" Butterfly in the Flower also lay down. "No need. The bed isn't big. You're taking up too much space." Ning Chen refused without the slightest hesitation. There was no way she could occupy his bed. "Senior sister, you don't have to take up space." Butterfly in the flower whispered into his ear. Ningchen decisively turned around, ignoring this demoness harassment. He had been running around for days. Once he relaxed, exhaustion washed over him. After a few breaths of time, the sound of steady breathing could be heard. Hong Yi closed her eyes and fell into a deep sleep. Butterfly in the flower 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 in the flower. She looked at the man sleeping beside her and touched his face. The more she knew about his past, the more she could feel the heavy pressure on him. She knew that he had been trying to find a way to enter the sea of demonic wheel. She couldn't stop him, so she tried her best to help him. At worst, she would just accompany him on this trip. Life and death were just the beginning and end of the play. She didn't care. She only had this one junior brother in her life. He wasn't scared by her bad reputation and was willing to play with her. He was even willing to face the sovereign of the human realm with her. Other than her, if anyone dared to bully him, she would kill their entire family. No matter how beautiful the butterfly in the flower was, it couldn't hide the fact that she was a disaster to other flowers. Butterfly in the flower 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 in the flower. No matter how beautiful she was. When night fell, Ningchen woke up. When he opened his eyes, he saw a pretty face in front of him. It was as beautiful as a flower, so beautiful that it made him dizzy. My face is big, I'm dizzy. Ningchen raised his head and pushed away the face in front of him. Then he sat up and looked out the window. He jumped in fright. How had it gotten dark so quickly? He thought he had just slept for a while. Junior brother, you should go earn money for your senior sister's cosmetics. Butterfly in the flower in the flower in the flower in the flower in the flower's arms. Yes, I'll go right now. Ningchen got off the bed. The two of them went out. White Emperor City at night was peaceful and quiet. Only the flower alley seemed to have opened up a new world. It was abnormally lively. The light in the night disappeared in a flash. Hong Yi put on a devil mask to cover her face. The two going north spread out their spiritual senses, looking for the 13 bandits going south. Of the 13 bandits, other than Mo Qingbai, there are 4 half-step venerables and 8 third calamities. 10 years ago, I killed 4 third calamities and crippled one of them. So tonight, I'll hold back the remaining 3. You deal with the remaining 4. Kill as many as you can, said Butterfly in the flower. All right. Ningchen nodded. For third calamities was a bit troublesome, but it wasn't impossible to deal with them. If possible, he would do his best to keep them here. That way, when he faced Mo Qingbai in the future, it would be much easier. In the boundless wilderness, a bonfire jumped. 7 figures were sitting cross-legged. Just at this moment, an evil spirit opened the door. Hong Yi and a demon saber appeared. At the same time, a beautiful figure appeared with the fluttering of butterfly clothes. The flower burial tear shone brightly under the moonlight. Butterfly in the flower. The expressions of the 3 half-step venerables immediately sank. This woman really was brazen. She actually dared to provoke them by herself. The 3 of them automatically ignored the red-robed figure. At most, the pressure of a first calamity was no threat to them. Be careful. Finish this quickly. Butterfly in the flower softly warned them. Her white feet stepped into the air. Light flashed, and the saber divinity displayed her martial arts. The 3 half-step venerables blocked at the same time. But there was a loud explosion. The ground around them shook and collapsed, sinking dozens of feet into the ground. Flower burial tear appeared, and the demon saber followed. Before they could blink, Hong Yi disappeared. When she reappeared, she was already dead. The 4 half-step venerables who had underestimated their enemy didn't have time to react. They were startled to see a saber light cut through their throats. Blood gushed out from one of their heads, dyeing the sky red. This sudden change shook everyone. They were immediately enraged. They flipped their palms and counterattacked. Hong Yi quickly retreated, bringing the 3 half-step venerables out of their field of vision. Seeing that they were far enough away, a sneer appeared beneath the evil spirit mask. He waved his hand, his killing intent surging out. The sun has risen. With a whisper, the phoenix fire rose, and the sword of the heavenly sun appeared. One by one, they circled around his body. In the next moment, the sword of the heavenly sun opened the night sky, revealing the martial arts of the heavenly sun book. Book of the Sun, 9 suns burning the heavens. The sword attracted the 9 suns. Heavenly fire descended. In an instant, heaven-burning flames roared out, scorching everything within 1,000 feet. Pung pung. The figure that was sent flying back vomited vermilion blood. Before he could recover from his shock, the tip of the sword had already arrived in front of him. It was as if it was about to take his life, not giving him the slightest chance to breathe. The 3 half-step venerables couldn't say anything. They were unwilling to die. The 3 half-step venerables fell to the ground. They saw the heavenly book's martial arts for the first time, and finally saw the peak of the world's sword. Chapter 462. The 9 suns fell, and the 3 calamities were defeated. The red-clothed figures rushed towards the distant battlefield. In the wilderness, the saber god fought the 3 bandits. Her sleeves danced, and saber light appeared in her sleeves. Despite fighting 1 against 3, she did not seem to be at a disadvantage. Her small, fair feet moved in the air, her movements strange and difficult to distinguish. Her blue sleeves swirled around her halberd, and saber light appeared, chasing after souls. At the moment of crisis, a vast palm blocked the saber. The shockwaves shook the area, and the 2 axes chopped down, splitting mountains. Barbaric bull. Hua Zhongdia wrinkled her nose and pulled back her sleeves. She held her saber and blocked the 2 axes. With a loud boom, she sent the former flying. I'm also very strong. The saber god used his martial prowess, suppressing the 3 bandits with 1 saber. He was a shocking expert, displaying his martial prowess. The 3 bandits worked together, halberd, axe and palm, surrounding the saber god. Despite fighting 3 against 1, they were suppressed. Although they were all half-venerables, the difference in strength was like heaven and earth. Unwilling to be suppressed, Bahong used his 2 axes, and a heavy black light rose. He used his ultimate move, wanting to cut down the saber. Just at this moment, the heavenly sun shone in the distance, and a purple sword arrived. The sword drew the 9 suns, breaking through the air. Bahong was shocked. He used his 2 axes to block the sword. The 9 suns burned around the 2, and the extreme heat caused the space to distort. Ugh! Suddenly 9 suns appeared. Bahong could not condense his essence in time. He groaned, and the corners of his mouth turned red. He had suffered quite a bit. It's you. Where are Feng Lin and the others? Bahong's expression sank when he saw the person who came. An ominous feeling rose in his heart, and he shouted angrily. They're dead. However, you will meet again soon. Ning Chun waved his sword, and the heavenly sun rotated. The peak of the sword was a half-venerate expert. The sword and axe clashed, and the shockwaves shook the area. The power of the saber god and the phoenix flame burned the sky, adding to the peak might of the sword. They clashed and sparks flew everywhere. The 2 axes opened the Yellow Springs Road, and the divine sword crossed the bridge of helplessness. Black light and purple light continuously intersected. It was the cycle of life and death, reflecting everyone's shadow. On the other side, the twin bandits of the Machete Deity Society swayed the wind and clouds with extreme martial prowess. Their blue sleeves danced with the aura of death, and the blurry shadows of their blades intertwined to form an endless path to hell. Diawu Qingping. His sleeves were wrapped around a saber, and a saber appeared from within the saber. A white saber was drawn from the flower burial ground. With a ripping sound, their clothes were torn. Saber wounds appeared on the bodies of the 2 bandits. Blood dyed the sky and sprinkled down. The situation became more and more dangerous, causing the 2 bandits' expressions to become more and more serious. They brandished their halberds, emitting dazzling green light. Their vast palms surged, and their divine might shook the heavens. However, within the halberd light and palm wind, it was difficult to distinguish the butterfly shadows. He stretched out his hand and grabbed the saber again. The saber broke the halberd, and he waved his hand to shake the palm. With a loud rumble, the space collapsed one after another. Dense mist sank into oblivion, and heaven and earth seemed to have died. One blade broke the halberd, and another arrived right after. The 2 blades joined together, burying flowers and taking lives. Ah! There was a muffled groan as the black saber pierced Xiao Chen's heart. Blood spurted out, filling the air with a red hue. Luohui. Jinghua was infuriated. He turned his palm over and raised his yuan, slapping the executioner in front of him. When the wind from the palm reached him, his sleeves pulled out a saber. With a bang, he met the palm's might head-on. In the aftermath, a figure fell from the sky and smashed into the ground. A great bandit of a generation had died. Jinghua's anger was difficult to suppress, but he also knew that if he continued to fight, he would definitely die. He turned his palm and pushed the saber away. Looking at the distant battle, he shouted, "Ba Hong, retreat!" On the other side, Ba Hong didn't want to continue fighting. He used 2 moves with his axes and quickly tried to escape. "I can't retreat." Ning Chen's feet moved, and he quickly moved to avoid the axes. Shortly after, he used his sword and saber at the same time. Phoenix flames surged out of his body, and he used the 2 moves of the heavenly book. 9 suns burning the heavens, rising sun shining east. 1 was the beginning of numbers and 9 were the end. The 2 moves of the heavenly book condensed into 1 move. In an instant, the heavenly sun fell, and the mortal world suffered a calamity. With a loud rumble, 10 li of land collapsed. The 2 bandits were trapped, and there was no way forward. Ba Hong, who was the closest, couldn't bear the might of the heavenly sun. He took 3 steps back, and the corner of his mouth turned red again. On the other side, in front of Jinghua, the flower burial tear blocked the way. There was no way to retreat. Before hell, there was no way to escape. Without any other choice, Jinghua's face sank. He clenched his fists together and lightning surged. A desperate move appeared for the first time. Furious lightning strikes the heavens. The collapsing furious lightning roared between heaven and earth. Huge spatial rifts appeared one after another. The terrifying power shook the 9 heavens. Seeing the opponent's desperate move, Butterfly in the flower's expression turned serious. She pulled back her sleeves and held her saber. In an instant, frost filled the sky, and the earth shook. The ultimate martial reappeared. Through the ages, the only one in 100 generations, a blade in spring and autumn, a beauty that can topple cities. The peak move appeared, and the universe trembled. Endless saber light soared into the sky, absorbing the saber aura between heaven and earth. It roared and rushed. In an instant, it fell rapidly. The ultimate move that could topple cities, and the world was vast. In an instant, the infernal road spread out in the mortal world. Ugh! With a painful groan, the saber light cut down the bandits. Blood gushed out, and mist covered his eyes and the sky. His unwilling eyes didn't get to see the mortal world for the last time. In the next moment, he fell directly into the infernal road. Capital, Ba Hong was infuriated, but before he could grieve, the saber light in front of him flashed once more. A blazing phoenix flame lit up the sky, blocking the bandits' path of retreat. A moment later, the saber god arrived. The black saber light brought with it a dazzling waterfall of blood. Qingbai, help us get revenge. With a furious roar, Ba Hong's chi-si exploded. Terrifying quintessence poured out, and he self-detonated his cultivation technique. When the 2 of them saw this, they hastily retreated. But then they heard an earth-shaking explosion. Everything within 100 miles became as bright as day. The mountains shook and the earth trembled. A wild sandstorm swept through the 9 heavens. Butterfly in the flower blocked in front of Ning Chen. Her saber spun, and a black light slashed out, forcefully blocking the wild sandstorm. A pool of blood appeared, and Butterfly in the flower's mouth was dyed red. She retreated half a step, her internal organs slightly injured. Ning Chen's figure flickered, and he landed on the ground with her. He asked with concern, "How are you?" "I'm fine. I just need to rest for a moment." Butterfly in the flower raised her hand to wipe away the blood at the corner of her mouth. She looked a bit tired. "You rest first. I'll be back soon," said Ningchen softly. "Yes." Butterfly in the flower sat down cross-legged and circulated her quintessence to suppress her internal injuries. Ningchen walked over to the 2 half-step venerables who had died in battle. He flipped his right hand, and rays of light shot into his sleeve. Senior apprentice sister wanted to buy some rouge and powder, so he couldn't forget about it. The wilderness was a scene of devastation after a great battle. Everywhere was a mess. After Ning Chun retrieved his spoils of war, he went to Butterfly in the Flower's side and calmly waited for her. A quarter of an hour later, Butterfly in the Flower woke up. She opened her eyes and looked at the figure beside her. She got up and smiled. "Let's go back." "Yes," said Ningchen softly. "I'm injured. Carry me on your back." Butterfly in the Flower's eyes rolled around. "All right." Although Ning Chun knew the demoness in front of him was faking it, he still nodded. If Butterfly in the Flower hadn't blocked that big bandit's self-detonation for him, he would have been the one injured. Butterfly in the Flower jumped up and wrapped her delicate arms around the former's neck. Then, her whole body leaned on his back. "Let's walk slowly. In any case, there's nothing to do when we go back," said Butterfly in the Flower. "Yes." Ningchen nodded. The woman on his back was so soft that she seemed boneless. Butterfly in the Flower's flower was like the girl next door. She didn't have any piercing sharpness to her. Her black hair fluttered in the wind, tickling his face. Butterfly in the Flower's flower gently smiled. She pinched a strand of hair and gently brushed it against his ear. "Stop messing around." Ningchen softly reprimanded her. Looking at the rising sun, he quickened his steps. "Do you have to go to the devil we'll see?" Hua Zhongdia hugged the former, her small face leaning on the latter's shoulder, exhaling. "Yes," Ningchen softly replied. The devil we'll see was his only hope of saving the ghost woman. No matter how dangerous it was, he had to go in at least once. However, he wouldn't throw away his life for nothing. Before going in, he would do his best to find a way to save his life. "I might not be able to defeat Mo Qingbai." Butterfly in the Flower tightened her arms. "I'll help you deal with this problem first," promised Ningchen. "Let's make it clear. Before I deal with Mo Qingbai, you're not allowed to leave." Butterfly in the Flower's arms tightened around him. "Yes." The morning sun rose from the east. The light of dawn scattered across the land, driving away the cold of the night. Butterfly in the Flower's flower gently fell asleep. She would occasionally smile, as if she was dreaming of something happy. White Emperor City was bustling with people. When the two of them entered the city, Butterfly in the Flower woke up. Looking at the bustling city, she smiled brightly. "Rouge Rouge. The Yangji Chamber of Commerce's top-quality rouge. Don't miss it." In front of a rouge shop, Butterfly in the Flower stopped and looked at the former. She didn't conceal the desire in her eyes. The shopkeeper was a sharp-eyed person. He immediately saw that the two of them had extraordinary auras. He immediately went up and laughed. "Miss, do you want rouge? I have all the Yangji Chamber of Commerce's top-quality rouge. If you miss it, you won't be able to buy it again. Which one do you want? Pick one yourself," softly said Ningchen. "Junior apprentice brother is the best." Butterfly in the Flower sweetly smiled and let go of his arm. She ran up and picked up a box of rouge. Ningchen also walked over. Looking at the dazzling array of rouge and powder, he couldn't tell which one was good and which one was bad. He didn't understand women's things, but as long as Butterfly in the Flower was happy, it was fine. "I want this one, and this one." Butterfly in the Flower picked out 3 boxes of rouge and smiled. "Miss, you really have good taste. These are our 3 best rouges. They're worth more than gold." The shopkeeper praised while hinting. "Thank you, shopkeeper, for your praise. May I ask how much it is?" Butterfly in the Flower smiled. 10 taels of gold," sincerely said the shopkeeper. Butterfly in the Flower stuck out her tongue and pitifully looked at the person next to her. She didn't say anything, but that was more important than any words. "Here." Ningchen didn't haggle this time. For once, he was generous. He took out some money and handed it over. Butterfly in the Flower 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 in the Flower's flower. She took the rouge and gently touched it to her lips. Immediately, her lips were dyed red. "Does it look good?" Butterfly in the Flower asked. "It looks good." Ningchen nodded. "You really have good taste." When Butterfly in the Flower heard this, her eyebrows curved like crescent moons. Their faces and peach blossoms reflected each other's crimson red, and their smiles could topple cities. Chapter 463. In a small residence in the eastern part of the city, there were many people coming and going in the red light district. Not far away, Hong Yi was thinking about something as she strolled. When she reached the bustling pavilion by the riverside, she slowed down and looked at the people coming and going in the pavilion. She revealed a smile of reminiscence. "Young master, come in and have a drink." Upon seeing this, a young woman in the prime of her youth, who wore a light green veil, immediately stepped forward. Her bright clothes revealed a large portion of her fair body, and her faintly discernible allure caused one's mouth to go dry. "No need." Ningchen shook his head and softly refused. "Come. Young master is wearing such thin clothes. Come in and warm up." The young woman walked up and grabbed his arm, dragging him into the hall. The spring flower and autumn moon pavilion was bustling with activity. Ningchen didn't refuse after being dragged in. He ordered a jug of wine, and calmly looked at the scholars and beauties coming and going. "Young master, do you know any girls? How about Luing help you call over a few girls to accompany you?" The young woman walked up and smiled. "Thank you, but there's really no need. I'll just drink some wine to warm up," said Ningchen calmly. "If young master is cold, drinking wine will take too long. How can it be faster than having a girl help you warm up?" Half of the woman's body was pressed against him. "Miss, I'll just drink by myself. You can go entertain the others." Ningchen took out a silver ingot and handed it to the woman. Luing was startled. There were quite a few rich and powerful people in the spring flower alley who were generous. However, this was the first time she had seen an idiot who gave money instead of a girl. "Then young master, drink slowly. If there's anything you need, just call me." Luing took the silver and got up from his body. Ningchen nodded and raised his cup to warm up his body. On the first floor, guests came and went, and the sounds of women chattered endlessly. On the stage, dancers danced. Their beautiful faces and enchanting figures made the blood of the men below boil. They constantly cheered. "Brother, let's have a drink together?" At this moment, a well-dressed young master appeared. He held a folding fan in his hand and had a jade-like complexion. His fair and delicate face was a little too delicate, and he didn't have the slightest bit of masculinity. He sat across from him and waved his hand to summon two ladies. He hugged one in each hand and smiled frivolously. The corners of Ning Chen's mouth couldn't help but curl up into a smile when he saw this person, and then he shook his head and said, "I don't have any silver. If young master wants to drink, then pay for it yourself." "Brother, there's no need to worry. I'll treat you this time." Young Master Jia waved his hand and said with a heroic expression. Ning Chen smiled again and didn't say anything else. He didn't know which family's child was from, but he actually disguised himself and came to this brothel. However, judging from their family background and upbringing, they shouldn't be the descendants of ordinary nobles. On the stage there were songs and dances, while below the stage, there were all kinds of people. It was hard to say whether they were ugly or beautiful. Some people spent money, some laughed along with them. Everyone was willing, so it was hard for others to judge. Suddenly, the earth trembled and the pavilion swayed. Everyone cried out in alarm and ran outside. Ning Chen's eyes flashed with a strange light. He put down the wine cup and a piece of silver and walked out of the hall. What happened? Young Master Jia ran out with a panicked expression. In the distance, the imperial palace rumbled and the world swayed. A shocking collision resounded through all of White Emperor City. Multicolored light rose up, and the sound of swords rang out. At this moment, an illusory figure appeared beside young Master Jia and reached out to grab him. Ning Chen's eyes turned cold, and he used his fingers to form a sword to block young Master Jia's hand. With a bang, an extremely small area of space collapsed. Ning Chen grabbed young Master Jia, and the sword in his fingers cut through the line between life and death as it pressed against the illusory figure. After a brief exchange of extreme speed, with a ripping sound, the sound of clothes being torn apart rang out. Specks of blood splattered out, piercing the eyes of others. Retreat! The illusory figure immediately retreated. It came and went without a trace, and its strange cultivation technique made it difficult for people to catch it. "Little girl, with your status, it's best if you don't sneak out," said Ning Chen calmly. Young Master Jia panicked and retreated 2 steps. He trembled. "You, how did you see through me?" Ning Chen didn't want to say anything more, so he turned and walked east. Zhao Liusu immediately ran forward and followed behind him. She didn't say anything, and just followed in fear. After 100 steps, Ningchen stopped, turned around and said, "Don't follow me anymore. I have nowhere to go," said Zhao Liusu with a sobbing tone. "Go back to your home," said Ningchen. "The palace gate is already closed," said Zhao Liusu in a panic. Ningchen frowned. "Someone from the palace? What's your name?" asked Ningchen, puzzled. "Zhao Liusu." Ningchen didn't know what to say. Enemies were bound to meet on a narrow road. He even met someone from the Zhao family here. There shouldn't be a lack of palace maids with the surname Zhao in the palace. However, the little girl in front of him was obviously not a palace maid. Thus, her identity was obvious. A few days ago, when he explored the Kaiyang Palace at night, there was someone from the Zhao family in the primitive emperor's central heavenly court. This girl was most likely a descendant of the Zhao family. In that case, the person who attacked Zhao Liusu just now should be an enemy of the Zhao family. Unfortunately, he shouldn't have bothered with this matter. The more he thought about it, the more unhappy he was. Ningchen turned around and left. Someone was looking for trouble with the Zhao family, and he ruined it. How depressing. After another 100 steps, the little girl behind him was still following closely. Ningchen frowned again. Does this girl really think that she's lucky? There's movement in the palace. At this moment, the void shook, and a blue figure walked out. After seeing the little girl behind Ningchen, she was slightly stunned and asked, "Who is she?" "From the palace, she's from the Zhao family," said Ningchen honestly. Hua Zhongdia's eyes flashed, and she immediately understood what was going on. She walked forward and looked up and down, and the corner of her mouth curved up into a strange smile. "She's from the Zhao family?" "Yes." Zhao Liusu subconsciously hid behind the man beside her, not daring to look at the girl in front of her. "Who is the old man in the Kaiyang Palace to you?" Hua Zhongdia's interest grew as she asked. "Ji grandfather," stuttered Zhao Liusu. Enemies really do meet on a narrow road. Hua Zhongdia smiled and looked at the palace that was shaking more and more violently. "We'll talk about this girl later. Let's go take a look at the palace first." "Okay." Ningchen nodded and waved his hand to bring the little girl behind him, and they directly flew towards the palace. Butterfly in the flower also took light steps and turned into a stream of light to follow him. Kaiyang Palace, Central Heavenly Court. Shockwaves spread everywhere, and the battle became more and more intense. Both sides were using all their skills. The two half-venerables joined hands and engaged in an intense battle. Half of the sky shook from the intense battle. Within the purple fate, the primitive emperor sat as steady as Mount Tai. His body was surrounded by purple qi, and nothing could penetrate it. In front of him, the old eunuch and the 13th prince, Yi Hongmian, were fighting a demi-sovereign. The old man from the Zhao family was using his bow to lock onto the soul. An arrow light constantly streaked across the sky to support the two. Even so, the three of them were still having a hard time fighting a demi-sovereign. Their red spears and horsetail whisks were dyed red. On the other side, the fourth prince was fighting a demi-sovereign alone. His blue sword was like a waterfall at times, and it was like a graceful swan at other times. His peak sword art gently played a mournful sword cry that reverberated in everyone's hearts. The demi-sovereign was shocked. He turned his palm to block the sword, but the sword suddenly twisted and twisted. The tip of the sword was like a snake's tongue, swallowing cold light. Duguxiu tilted his head to avoid the sword light, and his right arm's quintessential yuan shook away the sword. "The Kaiyang dynasty actually has an expert like you. You've made me look at you in a new light." Duguxiu looked at the torn clothes on his right arm, and a cold light flashed in his eyes. "As long as I'm here, no one is allowed to take half a step forward," said Yi Xuanmiao calmly. "Then let's see if you have the ability." With a cold snort, Duguxiu turned his palm again, and vast quintessential yuan swept through the clouds. Its power was several times stronger than before. Cyan bore a reverse rainbow. Yi Xuanmiao waved his sword, and a blue light rapidly soared. Thousands of rays of light converged and turned into a rainbow, crashing into the incoming palm. With a loud bang, heaven and earth tilted in all directions. Rays of sword light surged out, and terrifying waves rushed into the 9 heavens. Endless violent waves descended, destroying mountains and splitting rocks. Ugh! With a muffled groan, the two retreated several steps, both vomiting blood. Suddenly, a scarlet arrow pierced through the air, passing through the gap between the two, and shooting straight for the Yuan Emperor. Unable to dodge or block, the scarlet arrow carried the momentum of splitting the heavens, and smashed into the Yuan Emperor. Within the purple chi, the Yuan Emperor suddenly opened his eyes. The next moment, the scarlet arrow rushed into the purple chi and crazily spun, moving forward inch by inch. When the arrow came within an inch, it shattered bit by bit, and drops of blood fell. The Yuan Emperor barely managed to block this arrow. At this time, another arrow followed the previous arrow's trajectory, and directly pierced the Yuan Emperor's chest. Ugh! With a muffled groan, the Yuan Emperor's aura surged violently, and a waterfall of blood spurted out. Unable to endure it any longer, he took a step forward and flew into the sky. However, the void was completely empty. There was not a single person to be seen. Damn it! The Yuan Emperor covered his bleeding chest, and looked at the void that was still nowhere to be seen. His old face revealed extreme anger. Who was it that ruined his plans time and time again? Below, the battle had yet to continue. The Yuan Emperor returned in anger, and a shockingly powerful aura erupted at this moment. Duga Xiao and the other half-venerable were shocked. Seeing that things were not going well, they quickly retreated. Do you think you can leave? The Yuan Emperor roared, and his palm sealed the path of survival. The vast divine might swept the central heavenly court's quintessential Yuan Emperor, and slammed it towards the two. Duga Xiao was shocked. He barely avoided the sword light in front of him, and wanted to block the palm, but it was already too late. With a shocking explosion, the half-venerable couldn't block the Emperor's palm. The quintessential Yuan surged, and his body exploded. Blood and bones splattered all over the sky. The half-venerable died, and his soul dissipated. The other half-venerable turned into a stream of light, and quickly disappeared into the night. The battle ended, and the central heavenly court was devastated. Blood and bones were everywhere, and the ground was dyed red with blood. Father! The 13th prince knelt on the ground and lowered his head. The shock in his eyes was unconcealable. All along, he knew that his father was hiding his strength, but he didn't expect the real emperor to be so powerful. On the other side, Yishuan Miao waved his hand and put away his sword. He walked forward and half-knelt. The bandits have retreated. This son will also take his leave. Without any superfluous words, Yishuan Miao got up and walked out of the central heavenly court. From beginning to end, his expression didn't change at all. Chapter 464. In a small house in the eastern part of the city, two people were staring at each other. Zhao Liusu, who was in the middle, had tears in her eyes. She felt extremely wronged. In front of her, the two people looked at each other, not knowing what to do. Send her back. Definitely not. This girl had seen what they looked like. Kill her? Putting her under house arrest. That was fine, but when would this girl stop crying? What should we do? Hua Zhongdia, who had always been ruthless, also had a headache at this moment. It was easy to say that she would rather die than submit, but her crying was annoying. We can't send her back yet, Ningchen replied. Hearing this, the drizzle on Zhao Liusu's face immediately turned into a downpour. She started crying. Anyway, I don't want to take care of the child, Hua Zhongdia quickly said. Ningchen had no choice. He looked at the little girl in front of him and said, Zhao Liusu? Yes. The little girl nodded timidly. We can't send you back now, but we won't make things difficult for you. I saved your life, so I'll let you stay for a few days. It's fair, right? Ningchen tried to reason with her. Yes. Zhao Liusu cried as she thought about it. It seemed that the person in front of her did save her last night, but he was still a bad guy. Are you hungry? What do you want for breakfast? Ningchen continued to ask. Steamed buns with tofu filling. No green onions, Zhao Liusu replied while sobbing. Ningchen was helpless. She knew how to be picky. It seemed that this girl was fine. I want meat filling. More meat and less vegetables, Hua Zhongdia said promptly. Eat what you buy. Why are you so fussy? Ningchen glared and scolded. This she-devil was even more outrageous. Why didn't she fly to the sky? Junior brother likes the new and hates the old. Now that you have a new lover, you don't care about this old senior sister anymore. Hua Zhongdia hugged his arm and said pitifully with tears in her eyes. Ningchen decisively broke free from the she-devil's hands. She was taking advantage of him again. Can I have another serving of soy milk? At this time, Zhao Liusu said in a trembling voice. I want you to, Ningchen subconsciously replied. But when he saw that it was the little girl and not the demoness who spoke, he forcefully swallowed the last word and nodded stiffly. Okay. Seeing that the former was defeated, Butterfly and Flower's bad mood became much better. She patted the person beside her and said, Go and come back quickly. They are all waiting. Ningchen left with a sour face. Hua Zhongdia then looked at the little girl in front of her with a smile. She looked her up and down. Not to mention that she was wearing men's clothes. She was not bad looking. She was not as pretty as her, but she was still passable. What's the status of the old man in the palace in the Zhao family? Hua Zhongdia was bored, so she sat on the bed, swinging her white jade-like legs. Supreme Elder. Zhao Liusu pinched the corner of her clothes and whispered, What's your ranking? Hua Zhongdia asked further. 5th, Zhao Liusu answered honestly. Hua Zhongdia's eyes flashed with surprise. The Taishang of the third disaster was ranked 5th, which meant that there were at least 4 other old guys who could live longer than this person. Being old did not necessarily mean that one was strong, but living long was often a kind of ability in itself. In Zhongzhong Prefecture, the existence of the Zhao family had always been one of the behemoths that all the major inheritances feared the most. The water in the water was unfathomable. Now that she had caught a little girl, she could ask more questions. She now somewhat admired Ningchen's luck. He went out for a walk and casually went to a brothel, and he could catch the little princess of the Zhao family. Could this be the reward for saving the world? She looked good. Sister, how long do I have to stay here? Zhao Liusu bravely raised her head and asked, obviously lacking in confidence. Not necessarily, it depends on that guy's mood. If he likes you, then it's hard to say. I'm just a concubine of the 3rd or 4th branch, and I can't make the decision for you. Hua Zhongdia did not hesitate to pour dirty water on someone and said. Hearing this, Zhao Liusu's eyes unconsciously filled with tears again. She pouted and was about to cry again. Don't cry, or you won't have any buns to eat later. Hua Zhongdia threatened fiercely. Zhao Liusu immediately stopped crying and wiped her eyes. Feeling wronged, she said, I'm not crying. For the rest of the time, the two of them casually chatted. After a long time, Ningchen came back with buns and soy milk. He placed them on the table and said, Let's eat. Zhao Liusu consciously went to wash her hands. In the face of food, she decisively gave up on her deep hatred. Hua Zhongdia gave him a look meaning, She's a foodie easy to fool. Ningchen quickly returned a look saying, Watch closely, don't let this girl run away. She'll cause a lot of trouble. Hua Zhongdia raised her eyebrows and replied, Who do you think I am? Can I watch over a little girl? After replying, Hua Zhongdia felt that something was wrong. Anger flashed through her eyes, and she glared fiercely at Ningchen meaning, I won't watch over the child, so don't try to fool me. Eat. Ningchen acted as if he did not see. He turned around and called out, then walked to the table and sat down first. He really did not know when the last time he ate was. It seemed that taking care of this girl would require a lot of effort in the future. Zhao Liusu sat over. After hesitating for a while, she chose to sit opposite a certain someone. After a while, Hua Zhongdia also walked over with a smile and sat down next to a certain someone. She picked up a bun and took a bite. Seeing that it was stuffed with tofu, she did not eat it. The bun was stuffed into a certain someone's mouth. Hua Zhongdia wanted to take it again, but Ningchen hit her hand with his chopsticks. Don't take it. This girl didn't buy mini buns. The one that instantly wrinkled is your meat bun. Ningchen finished the tofu bun in his mouth in 2 bites and scolded angrily. You should have said so earlier. Hua Zhongdia picked a meat bun and happily took a bite. Her eyebrows curved like crescent moons. Zhao Liusu, after eating, disguise yourself. I'll take you to buy some clothes to change into. You might not be able to go back in 3 to 5 days. Ningchen reminded. Okay. Zhao Liusu nodded sadly. Eating her own tofu bun, she asked softly. Can I go out to play? I don't want to run. You can have someone to accompany you. Ningchen nodded, giving the captive the greatest freedom. The day after tomorrow, there will be a lantern festival. I want to see the lanterns. Zhao Liusu raised her head and requested. Ningchen looked at Hua Zhongdia. What he meant was, are you free? I'll take this girl out the day after tomorrow. Don't look at me. You agreed, not me. I'm very busy every day. Hua Zhongdia directly rejected a certain someone. What are you busy with? Ningchen asked, puzzled. It's none of your business. Hua Zhongdia rolled her eyes and replied. Ningchen was helpless. These people were really hard to get along with. After thinking for a bit, he looked at the little girl and said, I'll take you out the day after tomorrow. Zhao Liusu nodded. Although she was unwilling, she had no other choice. Having someone to accompany her was better than not being able to go out. After eating, Hua Zhongdia went to the courtyard to sing and practice dancing as usual. Ningchen took a small stool and sat in front of the door as an audience. Zhao Liusu also took a small stool and sat to the side to watch Hua Zhongdia sing. Do you know who attacked you yesterday? Ningchen asked. The person who attacked her last night had an extremely strange cultivation technique. It was difficult to detect him. If this girl hadn't been by his side, he probably wouldn't have been able to save her in time. This person was either in the same group as the 2 half-step venerables who had entered the palace yesterday, or it was just a coincidence. However, no matter what the reason was, there was no doubt that this person wasn't on good terms with the Zhao family. The bow in his hand would attract the Zhao family's people sooner or later. He didn't mind having a few more people cause trouble for the Zhao family. Hearing this question, Zhao Liusu thought hard and then bitterly shook her head, saying, I don't know. Ningchen wasn't disappointed. He was just casually asking. If this girl knew, it would be strange. Right. Does the Zhao family have any techniques or treasures that can help them avoid disaster? Ningchen turned his head and asked. Why are you asking this? Zhao Liusu looked at him warily. I'm bored. I just want to see if there are such things in the world. Also, the Zhao family's defenses are so tight. What do you have to worry about? Ningchen casually replied. Zhao Liusu hesitated for a moment, but still honestly said, there are 2 scapegoat talismans in the hands of the sect master and first supreme elder. I heard grandfather say that these scapegoat talismans can save you from death. However, it's only useful for half-step venerables and below. Nothing can interfere with the life and death of human sovereigns. Ningchen's eyes narrowed slightly. So there really was such a thing in the world. He had only suspected that if the Zhao family had such a scapegoat talisman, then the other top inheritances should have similar things. The 4 regions' worlds were much more complete than the divine prefecture. The inheritance's foundations were also unfathomable. It seemed that he had to be extremely careful when facing these inheritances in the future. In addition, the demonic Wheel Sea was full of dangers. If he wanted to enter, it would be very troublesome. Before that, he had to find a way to save his life. Otherwise, he would lose his life before he could find the immortal palace. Mournful rain, mournful wind, mournful red maple leaves by the riverside, hazy people, hazy rain. The woman's singing voice echoed through the small courtyard. It was very pleasant to listen to. The figure dancing with her sleeves was like the world's most beautiful fairy. It was very intoxicating. Big sister is so beautiful, said Zhao Liusu softly, infatuated. Yes. Ningchen nodded. When this demoness wasn't crazy, she was indeed very beautiful. Of course, when she was crazy, she was also very demonic. Not long after, the singing stopped, and the dancing figure stopped. She walked up and hugged a certain person. How was it? Senior apprentice sister Dai. Men and women shouldn't touch each other. Ningchen struggled with all his might. In any case, I'll be yours sooner or later. I don't care. Hua Zhongdia's arms tightened. I care. What do you mean you'll be mine? When did I agree? Ningchen struggled again. He had just praised her for being beautiful, but his true nature had been exposed. Excuse me, is there anyone here? At this moment, there was a knock on the door. It was a familiar voice, but it was also the person who had come. Ning Chen's expression froze, and he immediately stood up. It was him. Chapter 465. You two go in. Seen your sister die. Don't let this girl make a sound. Ning Chen looked at the girl beside him and said seriously. Okay. Hua Zhongdia nodded. She didn't want to mess around in front of a serious matter. She waved her hand and took Zhao Liusu inside. Ning Chen walked to the small courtyard and opened the door. Seeing the purple-robed figure in front of him, he said, Fourth Crown Prince, may I ask why you've come? Can I go in? Yixuan Miao asked calmly. Ning Chen turned to the side and opened up a path, indicating for him to enter. Thank you, Yixuan Miao said softly. The two entered the courtyard. Ning Chen asked them to sit at the stone table, and immediately went into the room to get tea. He poured 2 cups and placed them in front of each of them. Fourth Crown Prince, how did you know I was here? Ning Chen didn't understand. The day you bought the deed, I was in front of the mansion and just happened to see you. Yixuan Miao picked up the cup and took a sip. What a coincidence. Ning Chen smiled. I heard that Mr. Ning and Hua Zhongdia worked together to murder the Academy's opera singer. Is that true? Yixuan Miao asked. As Fourth Crown Prince can see, I'm hiding everywhere. Ning Chen smiled. Although I don't know what happened, I've seen your sword. With your sword heart, you wouldn't do such a thing, Yixuan Miao said calmly. It's hard to draw a tiger's skin, but not its bones. Fourth Crown Prince, how can you determine a person's character based on the fate of meeting them twice? Ning Chen picked up the cup and said slowly. People can lie, and their faces can change, but their sword heart won't lie. Yixuan Miao said slowly. Maybe. Ning Chen didn't argue anymore and changed the topic. Fourth Crown Prince, you didn't come here just to say this, right? It's nothing. It's just that the granddaughter of the Zhao family's 5th grand elder went missing. Father sent me and my 13th brother to look for her. We just found this place and came to take a look, Yixuan Miao said honestly. Do you need me to go in and check? Ning Chen drank the tea in his cup and asked softly. No need. I'm just doing my job. With Mr. Ning's ability, even if Zhao Liusu is here, no one will find her. Yixuan Miao said lightly. You think too highly of me. Ning Chen put down his teacup and replied. I still have matters to attend to, so I'll bid my farewells first. Thank you, Mr. Ning, for the tea. I hope that in the future, I'll have a chance to compare swords with Mr. Ning. Your sword contains the firmness that I've always been looking for. Yixuan Miao stood up, his expression serious. Let's talk about it when we get the chance. Ning Chen replied calmly. He didn't explicitly agree, but he didn't refuse either. Until we meet again. With that, Yixuan Miao didn't stay any longer and walked out of the courtyard. Seeing the former leave, Ning Chen glanced at the room and said, Come out, he's gone. After saying that, Hua Zhongdia walked out with Zhao Liusu. Looking at the closed door, a strange light flashed in her eyes. She said, This 4th prince really has a sharp sword heart. He's different from the primitive emperor. He won't be an enemy of the Academy, but he might be trouble for you and me, Ning Chen said calmly. It was hard to judge a stubborn person with common sense. It was impossible for Yixuan Miao to not have noticed the primitive emperor's intentions. However, the fetters of the bloodline inheritance still allowed this amazing 4th prince to repeatedly block the primitive emperor's murderous intent. The primitive emperor took an arrow from him, and his body was damaged. It wasn't that easy for him to reach perfection. As long as he didn't enter the sovereign realm, once he left the central heavenly court, the primitive emperor's power would sharply decline, and he wouldn't be much of a threat to the Academy. The most troublesome thing now was Mo Qingbai's existence, which was always a problem that needed to be solved. Although Mo Qingbai was the only one left of the 13 great bandits, a true human sovereign's power was immeasurable. It wouldn't be easy to deal with him. What are you thinking about? Hua Zhongdia asked curiously, after seeing the former didn't speak for a long time. Nothing. Ning Chen came back to his senses and smiled, saying, Little girl, get ready. I'll accompany you to buy a change of clothes. Okay. Hearing that they could go out, Zhao Liusu's eyes lit up, and she was about to run out. What's the rush? Let's put on your makeup first. Hua Zhongdia grabbed the little girl and dragged her into the room to change her makeup. Ning Chen walked to the door and leaned against the doorframe. Seeing the little girl being tormented in front of the dressing table, a faint smile appeared at the corner of his mouth. Zhao Liusu glanced at the former's smile from the corner of her eyes. Her small mouth twitched, and her mood became even worse. After a while, the little girl's face was changed beyond recognition. Coupled with the men's clothes she was wearing, it was impossible to tell that she was a little girl. Seeing her own figure in the mirror, Zhao Liusu's eyes almost filled with tears again. Was this still her? Okay, go early and come back early. Hua Zhongdia patted the little girl's head. She was in a good mood. Ning Chen brought the little girl out. He didn't deliberately hide his face. They had been waiting for Mo Qingbai all along. If a human paragon wanted to find someone, they wouldn't be able to hide for long unless they went far away. Mo Qingbai wasn't a fool. Even if he knew the whereabouts of Ning Chen and Hua Zhongdia, he wouldn't act rashly if he wasn't confident. If he couldn't hide his identity, it would only make Mo Qingbai more suspicious. Bringing the little girl out to buy clothes was very troublesome. Although Zhao Liusu was a captive, she was first and foremost a woman. Women represented trouble, especially when they were shopping. In the beginning, Zhao Liusu was a bit timid. However, she gradually realized that although the man beside her looked unreasonable, he was actually easy to talk to and easy to bully. I want this. Yes. I also want this. Yes. I also want this. Yes. Ning Chen's hands were filled with clothes. However, he still allowed the little girl to torment him. As long as she didn't run away, she could do whatever she wanted. Zhao Liusu's mood became better and better. For the first time, she realized that being a captive wasn't bad. Compared to when she was with the Zhao family and her grandfather, she had much more freedom. When the two of them returned, it was already dusk. Even with Ning Chen's Xiantian cultivation, he still felt a bit tired. Zhao Liusu, on the other hand, was abnormally excited. It was true that when a woman went shopping, her combat strength was immeasurable. Hua Zhongdia was startled when she saw the two of them coming back with all kinds of bags. To be exact, Ning Chen was carrying all kinds of bags, while Zhao Liusu just came back with a stick of candied haws in her hand. Big sister, this is for you. Zhao Liusu took the stick of candied fruit and offered it to the beautiful big sister in front of her. She could see that in this family, the beautiful big sister's words were the most important. Hua Zhongdia took the stick of candied fruit and immediately smiled. This little girl was very sensible. Kaiyang Imperial Palace, Central Heavenly Court. An armored guard knelt on the ground and respectfully said, Emperor Mr. Ning, who is wanted by the Whitefoot Academy, has appeared in the city today. Have you seen Hua Zhongdia? Asked the Yuan Emperor calmly from within the purple cloud. No, said the guard respectfully. Don't alert him. You can leave first, said the Yuan Emperor indifferently. Yes. The guard bowed once more and turned to leave. Within the purple cloud, the Yuan Emperor's eyes flashed. This person actually dared to appear so brazenly. Was he not afraid that the Academy would attack? The Academy's recent actions were becoming more and more unexpected. With his understanding of the Academy head, whether it was the Empyrean Heaven Pill, or inviting the four crown princes to the Heavenly Flame Tower, it didn't seem like the noble and pure Empyrean Qingqiu style. There had to be something he didn't know about. But as for what it was, he still couldn't see it. 2 days passed in a small courtyard in the eastern part of the city. It was quiet and peaceful. Nothing happened. The Lantern Festival was approaching. Lanterns were hung in front of every house in the city. It was very lively. Ning Chen looked at the excited little girl in front of him and smiled. Those carefree days really made him miss them. Back then, he had been as carefree as this girl. When he got into trouble, he had his eldest grandson to protect him. When there was danger, he had big sister Qing Ning to protect him. Unfortunately, time always passed too quickly. Don't always act like an old man. You're not much older than this girl. If you smile more, you won't age so quickly. Hua Zhongdia walked forward and caressed the former's face. Her eyebrows were filled with heartache. Senior apprentice sister, I might have to face the 3 calamities, whispered Ning Chen. Are you confident? Hua Zhongdia's expression became serious. Originally, I had 30% confidence. But after cultivating the sun scripture, I should have 50% confidence, said Ningchen honestly. What can I help you with? Asked Huazhongdia. You don't need to do anything. You just need to draw Mo Qingbai out as quickly as possible. I might not be able to last much longer. Ningchen's expression softened. You want to pull Mo Qingbai into the karmic flame tribulation? Asked Huazhongdia. Yes. With my killing karma. Once the karmic flames descend, even a chosen won't be able to escape unscathed, said Ningchen. No, that's too dangerous. Huazhongdia immediately rejected him. When a chosen entered the karmic flame tribulation, its power would rapidly increase. At that time, Mo Qingbai wouldn't be the only one who wouldn't be able to escape unscathed. Senior apprentice sister, don't worry. My body is condensed from the phoenix origin and phoenix blood. It is of the fire attribute, and I don't fear any fire essence in the mortal world. Perhaps I can even use this karmic flame tribulation to make another breakthrough. Are you always going to shoulder the danger by yourself? Huazhongdia's eyes flashed with tears as she scolded. That's because senior apprentice sister is someone I cherish. Don't worry, before I save the ghost woman I won't die. The Nether King won't be able to take my life, and neither will the heavens. Ningchen smiled. The Lantern Festival is about to begin. Let's go. Just at this moment, Zhao Liusu ran over and pulled on Ningchen's arm. Ningchen was dragged 2 steps away. He smiled apologetically at Huazhongdia and followed the little girl out of the door. Within a room, Huazhongdia was sitting in front of a dressing table. She was facing a mirror, putting on yellow flowers and putting on heavy makeup. One stroke at a time, her beautiful face was completely covered. She had a feathered crown, a pheasant's tail, a spear and a tear blade. She was a martial goddess of the mortal world. The Lantern Festival had already begun in Imperial City. Every house was decorated with lanterns and colored banners. They were guessing riddles, releasing river lanterns, singing operas, and watching the Lantern Festival. There were also talented men and beautiful women who were gathering and expressing their feelings. During this joyous festival, everyone was exceptionally lively. People who had worked hard for a year had all put down their burdens and come out to celebrate, releasing the pressure in their hearts. In the distance, Ningchen brought Zhao Liusu out. The chattering in his ears didn't seem as headache-inducing as it usually was. Chapter 466. Beside the Wishing River, countless men and women put down their lanterns and silently made wishes. Legend had it that on the day of the Lantern Festival, if you put down a lantern in the river and wrote down your wish, it would come true in the coming year. Zhao Liusu also bought a lantern and wrote down a very long wish. She excitedly put it in the river and watched as her lantern floated away. In the crowd, a white-robed figure walked past the river bank, passing by the red-robed figure. His emotionless eyes spoke of the ruthlessness of the martial path. What's the wish written on the lantern? Ningchen asked casually, as he glanced at the floating lantern by the riverbank. I'm not telling you. Zhao Liusu hurriedly shook her head. Little girl, there's no need to keep it a secret. Ningchen smiled. Humph. Zhao Liusu wrinkled her nose and rolled her eyes at a certain person. You're a captive. Ningchen reminded her. So what? Captives also have human rights. Zhao Liusu didn't have the slightest awareness of being a captive. Heh. Ningchen smiled and didn't argue with the little girl. Looking at the bustling crowd, he said, Let's go somewhere else. Don't you want to see the lanterns? Yes. Zhao Liusu nodded and immediately forgot about the argument. She bravely squeezed into the crowd. Ningchen followed behind unhurriedly. When he encountered someone who wanted to take advantage of him, he would secretly slap them away. Although this girl was a captive, she didn't have any bad intentions. There weren't many beautiful things in the world, and he didn't want to personally destroy them. Hurry up. Zhao Liusu turned around and saw the man behind her walking unhurriedly. She couldn't help but feel a bit anxious. She grabbed his arm and quickly walked forward. Didn't your family teach you to be careful between men and women? Ningchen asked casually. Even my beautiful sister isn't afraid. Why should a little girl like me be afraid? Zhao Liusu confidently replied. Ningchen smiled. Just now he was angry that she was called a little girl, but now she admitted it herself. There's a lot of people over there. Let's go take a look. In the distance there was a huge crowd. Seeing this, Zhao Liusu's interest was piqued, and she quickly walked over. It's lantern riddles. After arriving, Zhao Liusu squeezed her way in and found out that it was a lantern riddle. Her face immediately turned bitter. In the past, she had never guessed the riddle during the Lantern Festival. The rewards for the lantern riddles were pretty good. If he guessed 5 riddles and got 3 or more correct, he would be given a Kongming lantern and a small flower lantern. Zhao Liusu wanted a present, so she looked at the man beside her eagerly. He should be a little smarter than her. Take a guess. It's nothing. Ning Chun handed over a small piece of silver and said softly, "How many do you want?" Zhao Liusu asked softly. "You can have as many as you want. Once you've guessed enough, I'll get him to give me the change." Ning Chun chuckled. "All right." A smile immediately appeared on Zhao Liusu's pretty face. She handed over the silver and prepared to wash away the shame of many years. However, after seeing the first riddle, the smile on the little girl's face froze. The riddle on the lantern: there is a hole but no worm. There is a nest but no peak. There is silk but no silkworm. There is an umbrella but no man. Zhao Liusu thought hard. Then there was no then. "I can't guess," the little girl said bitterly. "Lotus root," Ning Chun whispered to help her cheat. Zhao Liusu's eyes lit up. She quickly wrote down the answer and handed it to the stall owner. "Little girl, you're so smart. Do you want to continue?" The stall owner chuckled. He could also tell that the answer was secretly told to her by the young master just now. However, this lantern festival was just for fun. The gifts weren't expensive. It didn't matter if a few were taken away. "Guess," Zhao Liusu said happily. The second riddle on the lantern: Red Lady climbed the tall building. Her heart hurt, and tears flowed. Zhao Liusu was dumbfounded again. "Candle," Ning Chun continued to help her cheat. Then the third riddle: This flower has never been planted since ancient times. It only blooms in the middle of winter. It has no roots and no leaves. It's really strange. Snowflake. It was still cheating. Someone answered for her. "Little girl, do you want to change the type?" The stall owner handed over the reward and smiled. "Okay." Zhao Liusu quickly nodded. She was sure that this type of riddle wasn't suitable for her. Ning Chun didn't stop her and let her do whatever she wanted. "Guess animals." The stall owner was kind and specially found a simple one for her. The first animal riddle: the boat is hard and the boat is high, for oars slowly rowing. Zhao Liusu saw this and pouted. She whispered, "I don't know how to." Turtle. Ning Chun quietly helped to answer. He was speechless at this girl's IQ. She didn't even answer one of the 4 riddles. It wasn't easy. Little girl, enjoy the cool night. With a lantern it shines. Firefly. With flowers and wings on its head, it wears a colorful cheongsam. Traveling all day long, it only knows how to be happy. Butterfly. The animal riddle was also cheated by someone. She finally answered it, handing the reward to the little girl. The stall owner glanced at the young man in front of him and smiled. "Young master, you can guess a few." "Okay." Ning Chun nodded. It was quite embarrassing to always help this girl cheat. The stall owner chose and took out the more difficult Chinese medicine riddle and placed it in front of the table. The first riddle: in the human world, all the beauties are gone. Ning Chun thought for a while and wrote 3 words. Missing in the spring. The second riddle: returning from the flower, the butterfly circled the knee. Ning Chun thought for a moment and wrote 2 words. Fragrance. The third riddle: talking nonstop. Ning Chun looked at the little girl. The latter quickly shook her head and said, "I don't know." Ning Chun chuckled and didn't expect the little girl to know. He picked up the brush and wrote 3 words again. Changlieshui. Young master's knowledge is really admirable. The stall owner sighed. This was already a very difficult riddle. The young man in front of him was really extraordinary. "You're too kind," Ning Chun responded and then looked at Zhao Liusu. "Do you still want to guess?" "Not anymore." Zhao Liusu pouted and shook her head. He knew all of them, but she didn't know any of them. It was too frustrating. "Then let's go." Ning Chun smiled. "Okay." Zhao Liusu nodded obediently this time and responded. Young master, my family's young miss invites you. Can you come with us? Just as the two of them were about to leave, a servant girl walked up and said respectfully, No. Zhao Liusu hugged a certain someone's arm to show her ownership. Sorry. Please go back and tell your family's young miss that she really can't leave right now, so we won't disturb her. Ningchen replied politely. Then he led the little girl to the other side. The servant girl walked back to the flower boat and respectfully bowed. Young miss, he refused. Yes, there's no need to force him. Let him go. Behind the beaded curtain, a hazy figure opened her mouth and replied. Yes. The servant girl accepted the order and turned to leave. In the crowd, Ningchen softly asked, Where are we going now? Zhao Liusu looked around and saw a large stage not far away. She pointed and said, Let's go there and watch the show. Isn't it better to go back and watch your sister Dai sing? Ningchen didn't understand. Since we're already here, let's watch for a while. If it's not good, we'll go back. Ningchen nodded and didn't say anything else. He followed her to the stage. On the stage built by Mulin, the flower lady was tender and beautiful, and the dragon lady was celebrating the festival. With the sound of bells and drums, the actresses left and Wu Dan went on stage. She wore a crown and a pheasant's tail. She was dressed splendidly, and her makeup was incomparably gorgeous. It's Sister Dai. Zhao Liusu immediately recognized the woman on stage. Yes. Ningchen nodded. He hadn't expected senior apprentice Sister Dai to come here. In the distance, a man in azure and white robes stood there. Looking at the woman on stage, he frowned. It was her. The sound of bells and drums rang out once more. Wu Dan was performing. Her spear danced like a dragon, shocking everyone present. Below the stage, Ningchen was observing. Gradually, his martial soul began to revolve. His spiritual yuan unconsciously merged with heaven and earth, causing heaven-shaking changes in the sky. With a rumbling sound, the clouds in the sky changed. The sky that had been clear just a moment ago was now filled with dark clouds. A torrential rain began to fall from the sky. The originally lively lantern festival was immediately filled with startled cries. People rushed to find a place to hide from the rain. Not long after, on the empty street, there was only the sound of Wu Dan singing. There was a young man in red, a little girl who was dressed like a man, but everyone could tell that she was a girl. There was another person, a man in green and white. Liusu, go back first. Don't run around. In a few days, I'll send you back to the Zhao family, said Ningchen. Yes. For once, the little girl was obedient. Braving the rain, she ran away. Hua Zhongdia and the academy's Mr. Ning. Old friends and new friends are all here. Mo Qingbai smiled. Esteemed Qingbai, is it just you? Asked Ningchen. Of course not. Although I'm confident, if I want to deal with the two of you, it'll be too troublesome if I don't find a helper. Mo Qingbai smiled. As he spoke, a flower boat calmly floated over. The boat stopped, and a woman holding an umbrella walked out. She stepped onto the stage. Let me introduce you. This is Luoshan and Mi Fei, said Mo Qingbai. The woman bowed and politely said, Greetings. I was entrusted by someone, so I'm only doing what I can. Sorry. Ning Chen's pupils constricted. This wasn't the power of a human supreme, but this seemingly calm pressure was even more dreadful than Mo Qingbai's. All right, let's begin. 2 against 2. That's fair and just, isn't it? Mo Qingbai's lips curled up with cold, killing intent. Senior apprentice Sister Dai, it's time to go all out, said Ningchen. Yes. Hua Zhongdia walked off the stage and casually tossed her spear to the side. She clenched her hand, and black light condensed into a cold and slender saber. Killing intent sword. Luoshan stepped forward and blocked the red-robed youth. She softly said, Sir, if you don't interfere, Mi Fei won't do anything today. Is that all right? Sorry, I can't do that. Ningchen clenched his right hand. Violet light appeared, and the Yama King's divine sword appeared in the world once more. The killing karma that flowed through it made people go crazy. The battle was about to begin. The situation could erupt at any moment. Just at this moment, a purple-red figure walked over. Behind him, 3 men with different appearances and extraordinary auras appeared at the same time. The Mizar dynasty's 4 crown princes appeared at the same time. In the blink of an eye, black-robed figures with dragon patterns appeared. Their powerful auras blocked out the moon. "Everyone, this is Imperial City. If you have personal grudges, please move elsewhere," said Yi Xuanmiao calmly. Chapter 467. In White Emperor City, the 4 most outstanding crown princes appeared together. Behind them were black-robed consecrators guarding them. This powerful formation was shocking. At the same time, in the distant central heavenly court, a pair of emotionless eyes coldly watched the situation. The primitive emperor, who could no longer endure, revealed his sharpness. The stalemate between the 3 powerhouses made the stormy night even gloomier. No one dared to act rashly. But at this moment, the woman holding the umbrella, who seemed the calmest, was the first to raise her right hand. Seeing this, Ning Chen's Yama sword also gathered its sharpness. Killing karma coiled around his body. His sword intent was unparalleled. The battle was about to begin. Yi Xuanmiao waved his hand, and the cyan moth sword came out of its sheath. "Senior apprentice sister, let's go somewhere else," said Ning Chen softly. Hua Zhongdia nodded and took light steps to the west. Ning Chen retreated, and with a flash of red light, he disappeared into the rain. Mo Qingbai didn't say anything and chased after him. Under the umbrella, a faint smile flashed on Luotian's flawless face. She soared into the sky and left. 100 miles away from White Emperor City, 4 figures flashed and continued west. Behind the academy, in the primordial land that stretched for thousands of miles, 2 figures appeared. Then Mo Qingbai and Luotian chased after them. "Not running anymore?" asked Mo Qingbai coldly. "I've already chosen a place for you to die. Are you satisfied?" asked Ning Chen calmly. "Ignorant brat. Don't think you can forget how strong you are just because you have some accomplishments in the sword." Mo Qingbai's killing intent appeared. "Senior apprentice sister, who are you going to deal with?" asked Ning Chen. "Leave that dead fish face to me. You can leave that pretty girl to you. Once you beat her into submission, you can bring her back to warm your bed," said Hua Zhongdia casually. "I'll try my best," Ning Chen replied, and the sword in his hand began to hum. In the next moment, his sword split into black and yellow as he mercilessly slashed out. "Young master, your killing intent is too strong." Luotian raised her hand to receive the sword. Sword intent overflowed, taking lives. In this chaotic world, how can a person be like a lady, untainted by dust? The divine sword in Ning Chen's hand spun. Thousands of murderous intents were added to the sword's power. The sword slashed across the sky, and the heaven and earth were boundless. The endless killing intent under his excessive rationality was simple and direct. Every move was aimed at the vital points of the woman's body. This was a completely different killing sword, causing everyone to sigh in admiration. Luotian moved, receiving the sword and dodging it. Although her expression was calm, she didn't dare to be careless. On the other side, Butterfly in the Flower challenged Mo Qingbai alone. The god of sabers faced off against the human sovereign. The battle had just begun, and it would not end until one of them was dead. Desolate rain, desolate wind. In the desolate rain, the saber is red. One saber and one sword opens a path to life, not entering the yellow springs to be a ghost hero. It was a world-shocking battle. Wherever the aftershocks reached, mountains collapsed and the earth was destroyed. Everything within a radius of 10 miles sank, and everything within 100 miles sank. Sword-style air severing. Ning Chen condensed his primordial energy and slashed the air with his sword. Heaven and earth moved at the same time. 100 zhang wide gust of wind and rain appeared, tearing the void apart. A strange light flashed in Luotian's eyes. She lifted a delicate hand, and motes of watery light lingered around her, forcefully blocking the sword intent. Crimson Remnant. After air severing, Crimson Remnant appeared once more. The figure that had instantly vanished was so fast that it seemed as if it would die in the blink of an eye. Crimson Remnant's breath. The sword passed through the heavens. With a ripping sound, her clothes were torn apart and jade-like skin appeared. Luotian leaned to the side to avoid this life-taking sword. The strange light in her eyes became even brighter. What a fast sword. Seeing the woman in front of him easily block his two swords, Ning Chen's eyes narrowed. He was well aware that this battle would be difficult. The brilliance of the sword changed and suns rose into the air. The 100 miles of rain instantly dissipated. The martial arts of the extreme young heavenly book appeared in the world once more. The Book of the Sun? Luoxin's mind focused. She flipped her hand and blue waves of water overflowed around her, turning into waves that surged forth with earth-shattering momentum. The two moves collided and yin and yang reversed. The primordial land that was already riddled with holes suffered heavy losses. Mountains collapsed and the earth caved in, destroying everything within 100 miles. The shocking shockwaves also affected the distant battle. The butterfly in the flower, and Mo Qingbai leapt up, avoiding the shockwaves. Saber and palm collided once more, causing space to shatter. This was a battle between the strongest powerhouses in the world. The two people who went against the flow of the world were facing an unfavorable situation. Their saber and sword souls were raised to the peak. The chains in the sky swayed. This was the great Tao's recognition of their martial arts. The battle became increasingly intense. The corners of the two people's mouths were dyed red. In an instant they exchanged opponents. The sword moved like a meteor, the saber moved like a black moon. They cooperated with each other in tacit understanding. After one move, they returned to their original positions. The saber and sword suddenly changed. Mo Qingbai and Luoxin blocked each move, and both took half a step back. The battle actually showed signs of balance. Mi Fei, are you going to keep defending? Don't forget what you promised me. Mo Qingbai shouted with a cold expression when he saw that the battle was in a stalemate. Luoxin gently sighed. Helpless. With a helpless sigh, Luoxin's slender hand stirred the world. For the first time, an unprecedented domain strength appeared. Instant eternity. With a word, the world became solemn. The space froze. Everything stopped. The flowers stopped fragrant, and the birds stopped chirping. It was as if the world was dead. Even though she wasn't a mortal realm sovereign, she displayed a domain strength that even sovereigns would find difficult to control. The battle instantly changed. Mo Qingbai's saber slowed down. He slammed his palm down, and his blue robes were dyed red. Senior sister. Ning Chen's mind shook. His figure flashed as he caught Hua Zhongdia, who was sent flying. Luoxin narrowed her eyes. What's going on? Her word was actually useless against him. Your sins are unforgivable. Seeing the blood flowing out of Hua Zhongdia's mouth, Ning Chen could no longer suppress the murderous intent around his body. Don't lose your mind. I'm fine. Hua Zhongdia staggered when she saw the demonic bloody light in Ning Chen's eyes. She stretched out her hand and touched his face. She forced a smile. Ning Chen immediately regained his senses. The bloody light in his eyes gradually faded as he returned to his original state. I will do my best to suppress this woman's domain strength. Senior sister, you should also be careful. After giving his instructions, Ning Chen clenched his left hand, and the demonic saber appeared. He quickly attacked. An even stronger sword combined with an even faster saber. The combination of strength and speed completely suppressed Luoxin's opportunity to attack. Facing the extreme attacks of both saber and sword, Luoxin first focused. Her slender hand condensed energy and blocked wave after wave of attacks. Sun scripture, rising sun in the east. The red robes flashed quickly. The divine sword on her right condensed into a sun. The rising sun illuminated the world. Luoxin gathered water to block the sun. Then she saw the saber flash. The swift saber was like the wind, threatening to kill. The peak combination of saber and sword appeared for the first time after the battle with the Nether King. Although the foundation was no longer there, the mastery of saber and sword was stronger than before. With a ripping sound, her clothes were torn apart. Blood dripped from Luoxin's left arm. It was the first time she saw blood since the battle. On the other side, the injured Hua Zhongdia was facing the powerful attacks of a mortal realm sovereign. She was originally at a slight disadvantage, but now she was completely at a disadvantage. Seeing this, Ning Chen took a strange step. Light flashed rapidly. 9 suns gathered on his sword and condensed into one. 2 moves appeared at the same time. 9 suns burning the heavens, rising sun in the east. A heavenly might descended from the sky. The earth cracked inch by inch, and the entire primitive land began to shake. The terrifying might made the world mourn. Mo Qingbai and Luotian blocked with their palms. Vast Yuan rose and blocked the power of the sun. Humans, you've crossed the line. At this moment, an aura as heavy as a mountain rose from the depths of the primitive land. In the next moment, a white-robed figure appeared, shaking the world. She's finally here. Ning Chen's gaze moved. He had been waiting for this moment for a long time. Senior sister, find an opportunity to retreat, said Ning Chen. If we're leaving, we'll leave together. Hua Zhongdia swung her saber to block Mo Qingbai's palm. Don't worry about me. I won't have any worries if you leave. As he spoke, Ning Chen's feet flashed as he charged toward Yao Qilua. Humans don't know the immensity of heaven and earth. Yao Qilua's expression turned cold. Her pale hand gathered the power of heaven and earth and slammed down. The red-robed figure turned around. The phoenix dodged the palm and arrived 300 meters behind Mo Qingbai. Yuan energy condensed on her sword, and the ultimate sword reappeared in the world. Nirvana! The magnificent sword transformed into a stream of swords that shot out. Everywhere it passed, the space collapsed and everything was destroyed. The strongest sword had stunned everyone. The stream of swords arrived in the blink of an eye. Yao Qilua didn't have time to think. She flipped her left palm and blocked the sword intent. Yuan condensed on her right hand and slapped toward Luotian. With a loud explosion, the 9 heavens fell. Yao Qilua was as immovable as a mountain, blocking the sword's peak attack. On the other hand, Luotian was struck by Yao Qilua's palm. A trace of blood dripped from the corner of her mouth. Even with her calm temperament, she couldn't help but feel a trace of anger. Silent samsara. It was the second type of domain that was shocking. This time, it was filled with murderous intent. Facing the demon Venerable, who had once brought disaster to the world, Luotian didn't show any mercy. She raised her hand and used her strongest attack. Yao Qilua's expression turned serious. She condensed her monster essence to resist the corrosion of the laws. I didn't expect there to be so many powerful cultivators among the humans. As she spoke, an illusory figure walked out from the depths of the primitive land. His aura wasn't any weaker than Yao Qilua's. It was the second energy-shaping realm Yao Qilua. Shrouded in mist, the primes reappeared. They waved their hands to disperse the power of laws that had descended on Yao Qilua. They turned to look at the human cultivators in front of them. A look of interest flashed across their eyes. Everyone is finally here. Seeing the second Yao Qilua walk out, Ning Chen's lips curled into a cold smile. Next, it would depend on who was lucky. Senior sister, let's go. With that, Hong Yi moved instantly and arrived in front of Hua Zhongdia. With a flip of her palm, she sent her out of the battle. Then she drew her sword and blade. The aura around her exploded. Endless killing intent gathered into a ferocious, mutated rock that rushed into the clouds. The 9 heavens suddenly changed and rumbled. In the next moment, endless hellfire descended from the sky, punishing the world's greatest sinners. Millions of hellfire karma gathered in one knowing destiny cultivator. The unprecedented hellfire tribulation was brought down. In an instant, everything within a radius of 10,000 feet was covered in hellfire. 3 Yao Qilua faced the same tribulation. In addition, there was Luotian, who wasn't any weaker than a human sovereign. Endless hellfire engulfed everyone. At the edge of the hellfire, a blue light flashed. Hua Zhongdia rushed out. She turned around and looked at the disappearing figures in front of her. Tears flowed from her eyes unconsciously. Chapter 468. In the academy, Qi Yinxia, who was in seclusion, suddenly felt a throbbing in her heart. She opened her eyes and walked out of the stone room. In the distance, karmic fire burned the sky for hundreds of miles. The terrifying scene was like the end of the world. An ominous premonition came over her. Qi Yinxia suppressed the throbbing in her heart. She moved quickly and rushed towards the primitive land behind the academy. In the pavilion in the lake, Yi Qingqiu stood up and looked at the terrifying scene in the distance. Unconcealable worry flashed across her beautiful face. How could this be? Didn't he say that he could pass this tribulation? Boom! In the sky above the primitive land, Thunder from the 9 heavens rolled. The karmic fire for hundreds of miles formed the most terrifying forbidden land in the human world. All living things died out. Millions of sinners, the heavens were furious. They didn't leave any chance for survival in the tribulation. They wanted to completely wipe out the sinners to show the heavenly might. The 3 venerables in the tribulation were shocked. In the face of a destructive tribulation, even as a supreme being, they didn't dare to be careless. Their vital energy was raised to the extreme, and they used all their strength to deal with the heavenly might that could destroy the world. The 3 venerables faced the tribulation together. It was a scene that had never happened before. The karmic fire burned the world, and the lightning descended. The tribulation of tribulations intensified the power of the tribulations. Eternal instant. In the karmic fire, Luotian raised her hand. The power of the laws spread out and froze time and space. However, in the next moment, the fire burned the city walls. The laws quickly dissipated. The power of the karmic fire destroyed everything in its path. It was an incomprehensible heavenly might. The 4 of them became serious. Even when they faced the tribulation, they didn't feel such a heavy sense of danger. Roar! The grayish-black strange rock screamed in the sky. The karmic fire burned around its body. The karmic fire of millions of living things gathered to form a strange beast. It had already materialized. It was shocking. It had never been seen before. In the center of the karmic fire, the void was distorted. The shadow in the fire, the body in the tribulation, the phoenix faced the sky. The sword will around it kept rising. In the rolling blood mist, the dark murderous karmic fire surged. It didn't yield in the slightest in the face of the heaven's punishment. The forbidden divine sword and the calamity demon saber trembled. Ever since the fall of King Yanluo had never been able to unleash the full might of the Yama dual weapons. But at this moment, the Yama dual weapons shone with the most resplendent radiance as they fought against the wrath of the heavens. Thunder and fire erupted, and a world-destroying might descended once more. Hongyi grunted. The corners of her mouth dyed red, and she staggered. His body had reached its limit, and he could not hold on any longer. His human form dissipated, and in the next moment, the cry of a phoenix could be heard from the 9 heavens. A huge phoenix image appeared, and the world shook. Feng! Huang! In an instant, countless gazes turned towards the primitive land, their faces filled with shock. After a brief moment of shock, the powerhouses of the human world tore open the void and rushed toward the primitive land. We're both demons, yet you're working together with humans. Damn it! A cold glint flashed in Yaoqiluo's eyes amidst the flames. Her figure flashed, and she soared into the sky, shaking the 9 states with a flip of her palm. With a rumble, the lightning struck again with the overflowing flames of karma. The heavens shook and the earth trembled. Large swaths of space ruptured, reaching thousands of feet away. Yaoqiluo could not block it in time. She suffered a backlash from the flames of karma, and was forced to retreat several steps. The world-shocking great calamity was filled with killing intent. Even supreme beings found it difficult to travel far. In the fog, another demon venerable turned and avoided the bolts of lightning. He looked at the phoenix in the sky, and a strange look flashed across his calm eyes. There was actually a phoenix in the human world. What an unexpected discovery! Mo Qingbai flipped his palm to disperse the lightning and flames of karma. He looked at the peak of the 9 heavens. Compared to taking the life of the butterfly in the flower, he had found something that interested him more. Boom! With an earth-shaking explosion, boundless lightning descended. There were at least tens of thousands of bolts, drowning the entire primitive land. The great calamity of the end of the world caused ghosts to weep and gods to mourn. Luotian and the other demon venerables blocked the tribulation at the same time. At this moment, they could no longer remain as calm as before. Their blood surged, and they retreated half a step. What has this lunatic done? Yaoqiluo wiped away the blood at the corner of her mouth. The first calamity of karma was actually so terrifying. Help him transcend the tribulation. Otherwise, the flames of karma on us will become stronger and stronger. It will never end. Another martial highness in the mist said in a deep voice. How can we help? The more we interfere, the faster the power of the heavenly tribulation will increase. Yao Qilua could not hide her killing intent. She clenched her fists so hard that cracking sounds could be heard. They had been forced into such a state by a junior. This was the greatest humiliation of their lives. "Use our blood to help him return to his ancestral state," said the demon venerable in the fog. "Did you hear that? If you don't want to die, then help us," shouted Yao Qilua as she glanced at the two humans not far away. "Huh. I have no objections to joining hands with the demon venerables," laughed Mo Qingbai. "I'll buy you 2 breaths of time." Luotian raised her hand, and her domain spread out, enveloping the 4 of them and temporarily blocking the descending lightning and flames of karma. "Leave it to me to open the path." Mo Qingbai flipped his palm, and a powerful palm energy shot out. A bluish-white light flashed, opening a flat path. When the 2 demon venerables saw this, they both activated their vast yuan. A drop of blood flew into the sky. However, at this moment, there was a loud rumble, and a dazzling light illuminated the world. Another 10,000 bolts of lightning descended, and the demon venerable's palms were blocked. Just as the demon venerable's blood was about to be submerged in the sea of lightning, a phoenix spread its wings and swooped down. It opened its mouth and swallowed 2 drops of blood. Lightning fell, and karmic flames covered the phoenix. A mournful phoenix cry rang out, and a blood-red light shone from the 9 heavens. Below, the sea of lightning descended. The 4 of them retreated once more, their bodies dyed red. Before the end of the tribulation, it was difficult for sovereigns to do anything. They had killed so many people in order to send back the Nether King. That was so terrifying that it made people's hearts tremble. Today retribution was coming. Mournful phoenix cries rang out in the sky one after another. The phoenix had abandoned its human form and revealed its phoenix form, but it was still unable to resist the fury of the Grand Tao. Blood dyed the 9 heavens. The demon venerable's blood merged with the phoenix's body, constantly repairing the phoenix's body that had been burned by the karmic flames. Specks of golden light circulated in the phoenix's blood. The signs of atavism were closer. In the sky and on the ground, the power of the karmic flames continued to strengthen. Luotian and Mo Qingbai found it more and more difficult to deal with it. Every time they blocked it, more terrifying lightning and fire would descend. Outside the heavenly tribulation, many strong cultivators arrived. They stopped and did not take half a step forward. They were afraid that they would be implicated by this shocking apocalypse. "It's him." In the distance, a beautiful figure suddenly turned around and looked at the phoenix in the sky. Surprise flashed in her eyes. The next moment, she took a step forward and rushed toward the direction of the Great Tribulation. After not seeing him for 10 years, he actually came to the Central Plains. What about him? Did he come too? In the primitive land, the invisible karmic flames had already burned for several hours. In the east, the sun rose, and the first rays of dawn shone down. The power of the karmic flames intensified again. In the academy, blue flames rose above the heavenly fire tower. They were actually attracted by the heavenly tribulation and summoned true heavenly fire. With a rumble, the 9 heavens filled with lightning. The heavenly fire and karmic flames drowned the primitive land. They were endless, as if they would never stop. The phoenix's figure became more and more illusory. However, the might of the heavenly tribulation became more and more terrifying. The pressure on the 4 people below also increased. "Kill him, or we will all die here today." Seeing that the karmic flames tribulation would never end, Yao Qilua shouted angrily. "No." In the mist, another demon venerate immediately stopped her. "We are already in the middle of the tribulation. If we attack him now, the heavens will not stop being angry. It is very likely that an even more terrifying heavenly tribulation will descend. Wait patiently." "Humph." Yao Qilua snorted angrily. She wiped the blood from the corner of her mouth and flipped her palm to block the lightning and fire descending from all directions. She could not kill him, nor could she retreat. How useless. On the other side, Mo Qingbai and Luotian were also not having an easy time. The karmic flames were endless, and there was no way to retreat. This terrifying tribulation was unheard of. Several hours had already passed, but there were still no signs of it weakening. It seemed that the heavens did not intend to let the person undergoing the tribulation successfully pass. The heavens' fury burned the entire sky red like blood. When will this tribulation end? Thousands of lightning bolts descended. Yao Qiluo's palm rumbled loudly. Blood splattered everywhere, and her white robes were instantly dyed red. I don't know. Let's wait. The karmic flames burned the world, and the mist temporarily faded away, revealing a pair of star-like eyes. The next moment, the mist rose up again, covering their line of sight. For thousands of years, no matter if it was the human world or the primitive land, such a situation had never occurred. They could not gamble. They could only pray that this person could pass this tribulation. It's still not over. In the distance, the experts of the human world were quietly watching the apocalyptic tribulation. Their expressions became more and more shocked. Just what kind of heaven-infuriating thing had this person done to cause the heavens' fury to never end? Heavens, what right do you have to unleash your fury? Thousands of miles away, a beautiful figure galloped over. A cold expression flashed across her face. If millions of lives had not been sacrificed in the war of death, the entire human world would have been buried. At that time, where were the heavenly laws, justice and wrath? Scroll of the moonfall. With the help of a palm, the palm energy swept out rapidly, reaching thousands of miles away. At the same time, two sword lights appeared at the same time. One was inky white, and the other was incomplete. They swept toward the primitive land from different directions. After the two swords, another crimson arrow light streaked across the void and swept toward the 9 heavens. The experts who survived the last battle in the divine prefecture sensed the crisis of the knowing destiny state. They helped at the same time and did their best. Outside the primitive land, the experts of the human world were shocked. Since when were there so many unfamiliar experts in Zhongzhou? That arrow light! In the central heavenly court of the Mazang Imperial Palace, the 5th Grand Elder of the Zhao family saw the crimson arrow light in the sky. There was no mistake. It was him, the traitor of the Zhao family, Luo Xingqian. He dared to return to Zhongzhou. He was really courting death. In the primitive land, above the 9 heavens, 4 kinds of forces entered the body. The illusory phoenix shadow became more and more solid. The phoenix cried again. The blood of the azure dragon and the black tortoise merged into the body. The phoenix regained its full strength and soared into the sky for the last fight. The heavens were furious. With a boom, thunder and lightning flashed. The hellfire turned into a meteor shower and fell from the sky. The knowing destiny state can't lose. All over Zhongzhou, familiar eyes looked at the primitive land and whispered. They had survived the most desperate divine tribulation. How could they bow before the wrath of the heavens? Everyone in the human world could bow to the heavens except them. Chapter 469. In the primordial land, a phoenix spread its wings and soared into the sky. Its cries resounded for thousands of miles. The heavens were furious. Lightning tribulation raged and karmic flames burned the world. This was the most terrifying tribulation since ancient times. The sky was filled with lightning. Nirvana. Phoenix transformation, using his body as a sword. At this moment man, phoenix, and sword all merged into one and streaked across the 9 heavens. Boom. In the end a heaven-shocking sound rang out. The entire world was shaken, and the entire world began to shake. The heavens above and the earth below both suffered the final tribulation, and in an instant, everything collapsed. The 3 human supremes vomited blood at the same time. They had been heavily injured by the final tribulation flames. Ugh! Specks of blood dyed the primordial land red. At the peak of the sky, the phoenix image vanished, and the tribulation clouds also disappeared. The sky was clear and bright, returning to normal. Ning Chun. Outside the primordial land, Hua Zhongdia anxiously soared into the sky to search for Ning Chen's figure. Is it over? Then it's time for us to take action. Not far away, experts of the mortal realm also rushed into the 9 heavens. A living phoenix was a great medicine that was more precious than anything else. Luoshan, is our agreement still not over? Below, Mo Qingbai looked at the sky and said, Can Venerable Qingbai still fight? Asked Luotian. Even a tiger can't be bullied by a dog. You go and block these people. As for killing Hua Zhongdia and the phoenix, I alone am enough. Mo Qingbai's lips curled into a cold smile. Humans? It seems you've already forgotten where this is. How can you allow others to covet something from the primordial land? Said Yao Qilua. 2 demon sovereigns are also interested in the phoenix. Since that's the case, then let's rely on our own abilities. Mo Qingbai calmly replied. His figure flickered as he soared to the peak of the sky. At the peak of the sky, after the tribulation, 1,000 miles turned into nothingness. Terrifying spatial turbulence filled the air. Hua Zhongdia didn't hesitate and directly charged in. Hong Yi floated in the void, sleeping peacefully. Her aura was calm without any fluctuations, and no one could sense any abnormalities. After Butterfly in the Flower entered, Mo Qingbai, Yao Qilua, and another primordial land's demon supremacy also entered the turbulence to search for the phoenix. At this moment, 4 figures walked over from the void. They were familiar faces. After 10 years they finally met again. Long time no see. The moment they looked at each other, they both understood. They exchanged simple greetings expressing their feelings of parting. You go in and find them. I will block these people with Luotian. Madame Luo glanced at the human powerhouses not too far away. Just now I felt that woman's power was somewhat familiar. I didn't think that you would actually know her. Luo Xingqian laughed softly. Let's go. Don't waste any more time. There are still 3 sovereigns inside. Regardless of whether or not we can find him, we can't let those 3 sovereigns succeed so easily, said Mu Qianshang calmly. Supreme? That's really troublesome. Luo Xingqian felt a headache coming on. You're just a heavily injured Jizuan. You're no different from a toothless tiger. You didn't die even when I beat up the Hell King, so you won't die this time either. Jian Er said indifferently, and then he took a step forward and flashed into the endless void. Your words are crude, but your reasoning is not. Mu Qianshang nodded approvingly and also followed in. These boorish people. Luo Xingqian shook his head helplessly. His figure flashed and also entered the void. Outside the void, Madame Luo raised her hand to block the attacks of the human powerhouses. She said in surprise, Why are you here? Visiting a friend. Madame Luo calmly replied. She flipped her hand and a cold moon rose. The moonlight poured down, and the surrounding space instantly froze, making it difficult to move. Have you found the person you're looking for? Madame Luo circulated her domain power at the same time. Eternal Instant completely sealed the surrounding space. No, but these fellows are all here. I believe that he will also appear soon. Madame Luo flipped her hand and activated the 9 Heavens Frost Palace. A divine palace appeared in the moon, and it fell from the sky with the power of the heavens. With a bang, blood and bones flew everywhere. The human powerhouses were unable to withstand the extreme power of the moon, and their bodies collapsed. In the endless void, 3 figures rapidly moved forward. A snow sword emitted an ink-white brilliance, sweeping away the spatial turbulence along the way. It's only been 10 years. How did you all improve so quickly? Behind them, Luo Xingqian spread out his spiritual sense and asked unhappily while searching. It's not that we're fast, it's that you're too slow, Jian Er said indifferently. Heh. Luo Xingqian chuckled and asked, Where's Xia Zi? Has anyone seen her? No. She's most likely completely bedeviled. Even if we meet, it's hard to say whether she's a friend or a foe. Mu Qianshang swung his sword and slashed away the turbulent storm. That makes sense. Then it's better not to meet her. Luo Xingqian nodded. Let's split up. It's too slow. After searching for a while, Jian Er waved his hand and took out his sword. He directly walked in another direction and left alone. Forget it. Let's split up then. We'll meet again. Luo Xingqian clenched his hand and pulled out his star scar bow. He shot the other side of the turbulence and left. These people are really hard to get along with. Mu Qianshang shook his head. His handsome and cold face did not have any ripples as he continued to walk forward. An hour later, 2 figures met at an unknown location. They were both wearing white robes, but one was calm and reserved while the other had oppressive demonic qi. Without saying a word, Jian moved his sword. An ancient sword slashed across. The sword had not broken, but the heart of the sword had already been broken. The cold and murderous sword light was simple and emotionless. Yao Qianluo's expression hardened. She was heavily injured, and did not want to fight for a long time. She flipped her palm and condensed yuan. The heavy vast yuan converging palm struck out. Jian swung his sword. 1 gave birth to 2, 2 gave birth to 3, and 3 gave birth to infinity. A completely different sword appeared in the void, and collided with the sovereign's palm. With a bang, her white robes were dyed red. Her ancient sword let out a mournful cry, unable to bear the sovereign's palm. Cracks appeared on it. Not bad, but you'll still die without a doubt. As she spoke, Yao Qianluo condensed her vast yuan once more. Vigorous demonic qi soared around her body, and turned into a roaring wave. Jian expression did not change in the slightest. His ancient sword turned, an endless sword light condensed into one to meet the palm. Crack! With a crisp sound, the ancient sword broke. The corner of Jian mouth was dyed red again. However, at that moment, the broken sword gave off an even more dazzling brilliance. With a slash of the sword, heaven and earth were cut apart. A sword that had never been seen before destroyed the void wherever it passed. The chaotic flow dissipated. The sovereign received the sword and retreated half a step. The sword intent affected its injuries from the previous calamity, and it staggered and vomited blood. Whoosh! Just as the sovereign was injured, a scarlet arrow suddenly tore through the sky. A dazzling arrow light swept past from afar, pressing towards its life. Yao Qianluo was furious. She suppressed her injuries and condensed yuan qi in her palm to block the deadly arrow light. With a bang, the aftershock shook the area. Another sword light tore through the void, chasing after its soul. Yao Qianluo moved and dodged the sword light. She knew that there was no point in wasting time here. Her figure flashed and flew in another direction. Did you find it? Jian wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth and asked. No. Let's continue searching separately. In the distance, Luo Xingchen responded and left again. Jian nodded and turned to leave. In the depths of the void, Hong Yi floated up and down. After an unknown amount of time, white mist filled the air. The sovereign appeared and walked forward step by step. Phoenix, should I let you stay? The sovereign raised its hand and specks of light appeared. In an instant, rays of sword light spiraled around Hong Yi. It was the sword intent that had yet to dissipate from the previous calamity. At this moment, a palm energy appeared behind the two of them without any warning. With a bang, it imprinted itself on the sovereign's back. Ugh! A pool of blood appeared and mist filled the void. The sovereign groaned and staggered a few steps. It turned its head with difficulty, and saw the green-white figure that had arrived at some unknown time. It said hoarsely, "Despicable. A sovereign and a phoenix. This trip was truly worth it. Once I refine the medicine and enter the next realm, I won't forget your sacrifice," sneered Mo Qingbai. "If you have the ability, then come and take it." The sovereign shouted from within the white mist. The mist around him surged and his long black hair danced. He brought Hong Yi with him, and disappeared into the white mist. Mo Qingbai's expression changed. He took a step forward and scattered the white mist with a flip of his palm. But he could no longer see the two of them. Half a day later, the three of them walked out of the void. They looked at each other, and shook their heads. "You didn't find him?" Luofei's figure flashed, and she arrived in front of them. "We can't find him alive, and we can't find his corpse if he's dead. How strange." Luo Xingchen was rejoicing in their misfortune. "We've already searched all the places we should. Even if we continue searching, we won't find anything. Everyone until we meet again," Jian calmly said and then walked away. "How cold-blooded." Luo Xingchen glanced at the departing figures, and then also left. He has the phoenix origin protecting him. As long as his soul doesn't scatter, it'll be difficult for him to die. I'm also leaving. If fate wills it, we'll meet again. Mu Qiansheng waved his hand and put away his sword. He turned and headed north. "Your friends are really cold," Goddess Luofei softly said. "Perhaps," Luofei calmly said as she looked back at the void created by the great calamity. After saying that, Luofei looked over at the woman beside her. She lightly said, "For the matter of you attacking him, I can tolerate it once because of our past friendship. But don't do it again. Also, let me give you a piece of advice. A senior might be coming soon. I can't guarantee whether or not he will tolerate this matter. A strange light flashed in Goddess Luofei's eyes. She asked, a human supreme? Not a supreme but a legend. A true legend, softly said Luofei. The storm caused by this great calamity would soon spread throughout the world. That senior should be arriving soon. In the endless void, turbulence surged. A beautiful figure in blood-stained blue robes walked through it step by step. Specks of blood dripped from her small white feet. A day and a night passed, but the butterfly within the flower still refused to leave. She worked hard to find him. Her injuries had flared up, but she had endured it. That helpless petite figure wandered through the void. Her beautiful face was in a mess, and she cut an extremely sorry figure. Ning Chun. She called out again and again, but there was no response. The anxiety in the butterfly's eyes grew stronger and stronger. From time to time, she would cover her mouth and cough. Blood seeped out between her fingers and dyed her blue robes red. However, the butterfly didn't seem to notice. It continued to cry out helplessly. It was like a moth flying into a flame, searching for that light in the void. Ning Chun, where are you? The butterfly that disappeared into the darkness began to stagger. She called out again and again, looking for hope in her despair. Chapter 470. In the southwest of the Central Plains, the phoenix appeared and disappeared in the catastrophe. The news quickly spread throughout the Central Plains. The primes of the mortal realm, the primordial lands, and the saber god. These were 4 mysterious experts. Their names spread out one after another. The number of peak experts involved in this calamity was somewhat frightening. No one knew what the final outcome was. They only knew that after that day, the primeval land was almost completely destroyed. The 2 energy-shaping realm demon lords were nowhere to be found. The supreme being of the human race was also severely injured in the disaster. Many of the strong fighters who came after were either killed or injured. As for the 4 unknown strong fighters who suddenly appeared in the sky above the primitive land, no one knew who they were. It was as if they appeared out of thin air. They had no background, experience, or even names. Luo Xingchun. The people of the Zhao family guessed the identity of one of them. They were angry and shocked at the same time. In just a dozen years, this person had become even stronger. They had high hopes for this peerless genius of the Zhao family. It was very likely that he would become the next leader of the Zhao family. However, things did not go as they wished. Luo Xingchen's betrayal became an unspeakable pain for the Zhao family. The stronger he became, the deeper the wound in the Zhao family's heart became. Send someone to kill him. Kill him as soon as possible, and take back the star scar bow. The Zhao family's elders roared. The Zhao family would not allow such a disgrace to exist. No matter what, this traitor had to be killed. This catastrophe attracted many people's attention. The situation in the Central Plains changed. Everyone was watching and waiting to see how things would develop. 10 days later, in the primordial land, a figure dressed in luxurious green robes walked over. His face was calm and handsome. Behind him, there was a beautiful young lady with a sword rack on her back. 5 different swords were in her hands, and the sound of swords could be heard. The peak of the sky returned to normal. The space turbulence also dissipated. However, the figure in red was nowhere to be seen. After the final calamity, the primitive land was devastated. Almost everything was destroyed. As long as the creatures in the final calamity had sinned, they were all burned into nothingness by the karmic fire. When the 2 arrived, the deer ran away in fright. The squirrel ran into its hole. Because of its kind nature, it survived the catastrophe and survived. Let's go to the Bailu Academy, the legendary warrior said calmly. Okay. The girl nodded and followed. In front of the Tiansong Academy, the figure in green walked slowly. The dozing old man immediately opened his eyes and stood up as if he was facing a great enemy. Let him in. The head courtyard's voice rang out. Hearing this, the old gatekeeper didn't say a word and stepped aside to open a path. As the legend passed by, the pressure from his sword caused the old man, who was a demigod, to feel suffocated. The little girl walked in after him. Her nimble sword heart was as clear as jade, becoming more and more dazzling. In the pavilion in the middle of the lake, the supremes of the human world would meet legends and discuss knowing destiny with the moon. So the senior he spoke of is your distinguished self, said Qingqiu politely. What happened? Prince Yan asked calmly. That is the truth. Qingqiu recounted the events in detail, including the day they fell into the trap at the Knowing Destiny Pavilion. Basically, everything went according to plan. The only accident was that they didn't expect Luotian to appear. Luotian mo Qingbai. Prince Yan nodded and stood up. Thank you for the information. Goodbye. With that, he left without any hesitation. A man followed with his sword on his back, not saying a single word from beginning to end. Unbelievable swordsman. Qingqiu sighed softly. She thought that the young man was already shocking enough. She didn't expect there to be such an incredible legend in the sword Dao. Although she wasn't sure yet, the origins of these people were gradually becoming clear. Eastern Divine Prefecture, Forbidden Land of the Gods. Only this conjecture could explain why there were so many top-notch powerful people in the Central Plains for no apparent reason. On the banks of the Luo River, in a secluded paradise, Luotian stood quietly, waiting for the arrival of the legend. Her picturesque face was like a goddess from the 9 heavens. She was so beautiful that people didn't dare to look directly at her. On the 11th day, the legend appeared and walked over. Luotian's eyes narrowed. This was the first time she felt the pressure of an ultimate martial artist. 100 feet away, Luotian watched quietly. She didn't interfere or persuade the legend to fight. A man put down his sword and walked to the other side quietly. One sword, regardless of life or death, said Prince Yan calmly. Please show me your move. Facing the most terrifying opponent in her life, Luotian didn't dare to be careless. Prince Yan waved his hand, and sand swords condensed. Strand by strand, they converged into the sharpest sword. In the next moment, a beam of light shot out. Luotian calmed himself down and lifted his hand. Eternal Instant and Silent Samsara were unleashed simultaneously. His words contained the power of laws, wanting to block the ultimate sword. Domains and swords collided. 100 feet away, Luotian sighed and turned her head. She didn't want to watch. However, within the two domains, after a brief stalemate, the sand sword dispersed. At the end of the domain, the most brilliant brilliance streaked across. The extreme sword edge cut through the power of the laws. Wherever the sword passed, all laws were shattered. Ugh! A sword pierced through her body. Blood sprayed out and sprinkled down on the banks of the Luo River. The paradise was dyed red. A man, let's go. The sand swords returned to their scabbards. Prince Yan turned and left. A man walked forward, picked up his sword, and left together with him. On the banks of the river, a beautiful figure staggered. She clutched her left shoulder. Blood dyed her clothes red. A sword was 3 inches above her heart. Luotian walked over and poured her essence into her to help her heal. Many thanks, said Luotian softly. It was hard to imagine that such a sword existed in this world. The word legendary was too light. You don't need to thank me. You aren't the main culprit. Otherwise, even if I was here, I wouldn't have been able to save your life, said Luotian calmly. White Emperor City. In a small courtyard in the eastern part of the city, a legendary cultivator arrived. However, there was no one there. The butterfly left to continue searching for life-knowing cultivators. Senior, can you help him vent his anger? Asked a man softly. All right. Prince Yan nodded. An hour later, the two of them left and set out on their journey north. On the 17th day, in the White Wolf Plains, a legendary cultivator blocked the path of a chosen. What advice do you have? Mo Qingbai's expression darkened when he saw the person blocking the path. He felt an inexplicable sense of dread. Help me get justice. Please, said Prince Yan calmly. You, Mo Qingbai snorted. He didn't ask any more questions. With a flip of his palm, a vast origin energy connected the heavens and the earth. The moonlight illuminated the darkness. In the distance, a man silently watched the battle. The chosen had begun their battle. Prince Yan waved his hand, and a dark sword flew out from the sword rack. The sealing sword had reappeared in the mortal world. When the sword and palm met, Heaven and earth tilted. The white wolf plains instantly collapsed. Sand swirled and waves surged. One sword forbidding martial arts. There is no Tao in the world. The forbidding martial arts sword swallowed everything. Black light flickered and everything fell. There was no Tao in the world. Mo Qingbai condensed his yuan to block the sword. But with a bang, his yuan was swallowed up by the sword light. Blood splashed out, and he was forced back several steps. How could this be? Mo Qingbai vomited a mouthful of blood, once again triggering the injuries left behind by the karmic flame's tribulation. He staggered. Cripple your martial arts or keep your life. Choose for yourself. Prince Yan gripped his sword. Arrogant, Mo Qingbai was furious. He forcibly suppressed his injuries and flipped his right palm. He gathered the energy of heaven and earth, pushing his cultivation to the limit. Heaven and earth rumbled, and a giant dragon gate appeared. When the dragon gate appeared, heaven and earth became boundless. The ancient dragon gate made of stone suppressed everything. The heavy pressure caused the space within 100 miles to distort. The primes went all out. Prince Yan's eyes flashed coldly. His left hand shook, and the halberd flew out from the sword rack. A heavy sword appeared and heaven and earth sank. When the sword reached death, the primes blocked it. The ground collapsed once again. It was a shocking battle. Each palm was heavier than the last, and each sword was heavier than the last. They faced each other head-on, and the ultimate martial art reached perfection. Blood splattered all over the wilderness. The injured human supremes couldn't block the extreme sword intent. Sword wounds appeared all over their bodies one after another. Impossible. Mo Qingbai was furious at the unacceptable defeat. He reached out to grab the sword, wanting to seal the sword user's move. Prince Yan's expression did not change. He turned around, and his sword was as fast as a swan. One sword cut off the palm, and blood gushed out like a tide. Sword sound flying swan. Before the blood fell, the green clothes disappeared. The two swords left his hands and broke through the prime's protective true yuan. Then, he condensed energy and broke through the prime's sea of qi. Ugh! With a muffled groan, blood spurted out, and the dragon gate collapsed. The prime's martial arts were crippled, and they fell to the ground. Impossible. It was an unbelievable result. Blood continuously dripped from the corner of Mo Qingbai's mouth. His rapid breathing became weaker and weaker. Gradually his consciousness faded, and his arms fell powerlessly. Prince Yan waved his right hand. Abyss condensation and halberd returned to their sheaths, and then he left. A little girl appeared in front of the sword rack. She picked up the sword rack and followed him. "Senior, is he dead?" asked a man softly on the way. "No. For some people, crippling their martial arts is worse than death. This punishment is enough," replied Prince Yan calmly. "Yes, killing people isn't good." A man nodded. In the wilderness, the howls of wolves rang out continuously. The two people, one in front and one behind, disappeared into the darkness of the night. 1,000 miles away, a beautiful woman in blue was walking on the street. Her hair was disheveled, and she looked travel-worn. Behind her, Zhao Liusu followed closely. Looking at the woman in front of her, her face was full of worry. "Uncle, have you seen a red-clothed youth? He looks very delicate, and when he smiles he's very gentle." "No." "Young miss, have you seen?" "No." Although she was filled with questions and disappointment, Hua Zhongdia still refused to give up. She constantly asked, looking for her final hope. In just a short dozen days, Hua Zhongdia, who was heavily injured and hadn't slept at all, had a trace of frost on her hair. Her mind and body had both reached their limits. Her heart was filled with regret and self-blame. She had completely fallen into the devil tribulation, emotion tribulation, devil tribulation, and all life tribulation. Before becoming a chosen, there were countless tribulations. Only these 3 tribulations were the most difficult to pass. The emotion tribulation and the devil tribulation were the most difficult. Cough, cough. Suddenly, Hua Zhongdia stopped and coughed violently. Blood seeped out between her fingers and dripped onto the ground. The people on the streets were shocked. They hastily moved away, not wanting to get involved in this trouble. "Sister Hua Zhongdia, you should rest for a bit." Zhao Liusu hurriedly stepped forward, and supported the dying butterfly. She said worriedly, "I'm fine. He's injured. I have to find him quickly." Hua Zhongdia pushed Zhao Liusu away and continued walking. Chapter 471. In the endless abyss, in an unknown land, red clothes floated up and down. Unknowingly, over a month had passed. Corpses and bones could be seen everywhere. Occasionally, birds would fall from the sky, but they could no longer spread their wings. They could only wait for death to descend upon them. Not far away, white mist filled the air and blood flowed. The demon Venerable was heavily injured, and was also unconscious. Mo Qingbai's sudden attack destroyed most of the demon sovereign's heart veins. He barely managed to use his last bit of strength to return to the place where he turned into a flood dragon. Above the 9 heavens, the cold moon shone down. The white flood dragon was the first to wake up. He struggled to get up, but just as he was about to step forward, he suddenly staggered and vomited another mouthful of blood. The white mist gradually dissipated, revealing a pair of starry eyes. The white flood dragon waved its hand. In the distance, a bamboo hat beside one of the deceased flew over and was placed on its head. The black veil draped down to cover its eyes and face. In the next moment, the white mist scattered, revealing a blue-white figure. The supreme being of monsters was like a phoenix. She loathed the greedy humans and didn't want anyone to see her face. Up ahead, the red clothes floated up and down. They seemed to be guided by an indescribable force, so they didn't fall down. The white flood dragon stepped forward and raised his hand to collect the demon clan's origin. As danger approached, the sword intent protected his body. With a tearing sound, a strand of his clothes was cut off. The white flood dragon let out a soft cry of surprise. He gathered what little true essence he had left in his palm, wanting to forcefully break through the sword intent protecting the former's body. At this moment, the red coat opened her eyes. A dazzling sword radiance flashed past and collided with the demon Venerable's palm power. With a loud tremor, the two of them retreated at the same time. The white flood dragon staggered and vomited blood again. The two pairs of eyes that looked at each other were equally emotionless. One was born of nature, while the other had experienced a myriad of things. At this moment, they were both on guard against each other, not daring to be careless. "What is this place?" Ning Chen frowned when he felt that his true essence was almost completely gone. "Burial stream," the white flood dragon said hoarsely. "You want to kill me?" Ning Chen's expression regained its calm as he asked. "I'll only be able to leave after I recover." The white flood dragon didn't hide his killing intent at all. "Unfortunately, you don't have that ability right now." With that, Ning Chen turned around and walked into the depths of the burial stream. Since his cultivation was suppressed, the demon Venerable would not be any better off. Otherwise, he would not be alive now. Right now, the most important thing was to find a way out as soon as possible. The white flood dragon quietly followed behind, waiting for the moment when the former was careless, so that it could snatch the phoenix origin. Ning Chen didn't care. Even though the demon Venerable couldn't do anything to him, it was equally difficult for him to kill the demon Venerable. The moon hung high in the sky, sprinkling down a cold waterfall. In this lifeless canyon, there were white bones everywhere. After walking for a long time, Ning Chen had no choice but to stop temporarily. He sighed in his heart. This time, it was really troublesome. This was indeed a dangerous place with no way out. There were cliffs on both sides that were more than 10,000 zhang tall. Climbing up was as difficult as ascending to the heavens. He had two choices. The first was to give up a portion of the phoenix origin to help the demon Venerable recover. At the same time, he prayed that the demon Venerable would not kill him, and was even willing to take him out. The second option was to climb up and pray to the heavens that there wouldn't be any accidents and fall down halfway. However, neither of the two choices seemed reliable. No matter which one he chose, he would only die faster. As the cold wind blew, Ning Chen felt chills all over his body. After losing his cultivation, he could clearly feel the cold weather. Not too far away, the white flood dragon that had lost most of its strength was also in a bad state. Although snakes liked the cold, there was still a limit. The night in the valley was indeed a bit too cold. Chi-chi. The sound of wood being drilled rang out. Gradually, wisps of smoke came out of the wood, and sparks flew out. There really is no harm in learning more things. Ningchen sighed. He placed the dried grass he had found on the hole, where sparks were coming out of. He blew on it bit by bit, occasionally choking on it and coughing. Not too far away, the white flood dragon was dumbfounded as it watched Ningchen start a fire. In front of the fire, Ningchen sat quietly. As he warmed up, he thought of a way to get out. He could feel his strength draining away with each passing moment. He estimated that in a few more days, he wouldn't have any left. Falling into this damned place was truly unlucky. The white flood dragon walked up and immediately attacked. Its power was completely different from before. At this moment, even Ningchen, whose strength had been suppressed, felt quite a bit of pressure. Ningchen stood up and formed a sword with his fingers. He took the demon venerable's attack head-on. After a loud explosion, he was forced back several steps. The white flood dragon vomited blood. Ningchen also didn't feel good. His qi and blood surged, and his chest felt stuffy. After the attack, the white flood dragon stood beside the fire and didn't attack anymore. Ningchen frowned. He didn't understand at first, but after a while he understood. After weighing the pros and cons, he had to swallow this loss for the time being. He walked far away and started a new fire. At this moment, a demon supremacy and a sword supremacy were actually fighting over a pile of fire. It was truly indescribably absurd. The first night passed peacefully without a word. Ningchen was vigilant, and so was the white flood dragon. When they were resting, they almost turned a blind eye. If there was any movement, they would immediately wake up. On the second day, Ningchen reluctantly summoned the Yama sword from the phoenix shadow. He thought about whether he should take the opportunity to kill this demon venerable. After thinking for a while, he had to give up the idea. Their strength was about the same. Even if he could kill him, he would probably be seriously injured. If he got injured at this time, it would be no different from courting death. When the white flood dragon saw the former take out the sword, he subconsciously distanced himself. His eyes became even more cautious. Humans were all sinister and cunning. He had to be more careful. Boom! When the sun was in the middle of the day, dark clouds suddenly rolled in the sky. Before they could react, heavy rain poured down and extinguished the fire left behind by the two. The two former peak experts were also drenched. Even Ningchen, who had a strong temperament, couldn't help but curse at this moment. When it rains, it pours. Before he could find a way out, he was going to freeze to death. The white flood dragon didn't have any other ideas. He just quietly watched the cunning human in front of him. Ningchen didn't care about the idiot in the distance. He hurriedly found some fallen branches and leaves from the cliff, and tied them with withered vines to build a simple shelter from the rain. Seeing this, the white flood dragon immediately stepped forward. Without saying a word, he wanted to fight again. Ningchen was furious. He picked up his sword and went forward. Reality proved that a starving camel was still bigger than a horse. The demon venerable, who didn't have much strength left, was still slightly stronger than a certain someone. A certain someone was beaten away and fell to the rain outside. The white flood dragon sat on a rock in the shelter and looked at the cunning human falling to the rain. His mood improved a lot. The sky of the burial stream and the woman's face changed quickly. After a quarter of an hour, the sky above the stream cleared up and the sun shone brightly. It happened so quickly that it made people dumbfounded. The white flood dragon walked out of the shelter and drew a circle to declare his sovereignty. Ningchen gave him the middle finger and turned around to leave. He could tell that this demon venerable didn't understand the ways of the world, not to mention having any sense of shame. He did things based on his demonic nature and instinct. When he saw something good, he would snatch it. He was simply a bandit. As the saying goes, bandits aren't scary. What's scary is that bandits are uncultured and unreasonable. What's more frightening is that he couldn't defeat him now. On the second night, the withered branches and leaves were all wet from the rain. They couldn't start a fire. The two experts on the cliff stared at each other in the cold for the whole night. On the third day, the two's strength loss became more serious. However, the order of strength didn't change. At night, Ning Chen started a fire and was beaten away. On the fourth day, it started to rain in the stream again. The shelter was overturned, and the two were both drenched. Fortunately, a wild wolf fell from the cliff and was picked up by someone. Although the innate phoenix body wouldn't starve to death, eating something would warm him up. Only then would he have the strength to fight with the monster and think about how to get out. Reality proved that when the fire was raised again, the monster came to snatch it as usual. Wait! Ning Chen directly took out a stone trough from behind and threatened, "If you come any closer, I'll put out the fire." Facing the threat of the cunning human, the white flood dragon obviously hesitated. He stood there for a long time and couldn't make up his mind. That night, Ning Chen enjoyed the warmth of the bonfire alone. He also roasted some wolf meat to eat. He was in a very good mood. When the sun rose on the fifth day, Ning Chen took the fire seed and put out the bonfire. He then secretly hid the wolf and continued to look for a possible way out. The north and south of the burial stream were steep cliffs. The east and west direction was long and narrow. Not here. Not here either. After searching for an entire day, Ning Chen's neck started to ache. However, he still couldn't find a way out. The mountain was too steep, and the weather was unpredictable. If it rained when he went up, it would be very troublesome. When the sun set, Ning Chen went back and prepared to start a fire and eat something. When he walked to the place where the wolf was hidden, he was furious. The wolf was gone. Only a few strands of wolf fur were left. In the distance, the white flood dragon had a wolf beside it. It held a wooden stick in its hand and imitated a certain person to start a fire by drilling wood. Unfortunately, after drilling for a long time, there wasn't even smoke. Ning Chen walked 20 steps away and leaned against the mountain wall. He didn't hide the disdain on his face. Robber thief. As the saying goes, a gentleman uses his mouth and not his fists. Therefore a certain person mocked. The white flood dragon raised its head. Anger flashed in its eyes that were covered by the black veil on its bamboo hat. The anger that couldn't be lit was about to explode. You can't light it, right? You can eat it raw. The certain person continued to pour salt on the wound. The white flood dragon couldn't stand it anymore. It stood up and immediately wanted to punish this despicable and annoying human. Seeing this, Ning Chen knew better than to fight when the odds were against him. He ran away. The two of them chased each other for more than an hour. They were so tired that they bent over and panted. They almost didn't have the strength to stand. I want to discuss something," Ning Chen said while gasping for breath. "What is it?" The white flood dragon struggled to stand up and took half a step back. "What kind of attitude is that?" Ning Chen felt that his self-esteem was hurt. He said with disdain, "I'm not interested in men. No, I'm not interested in men. Give me half of the wolf, and I'll help you start a fire. If you don't agree, you can eat it raw." Hearing the former's words, the white flood dragon's eyes were first filled with anger. Then it struggled. After a long time, it nodded and said, "Okay." Chapter 472. Burial Stream. This was the first time a human and a demon had cooperated. The two of them didn't trust each other, but they had reached a temporary consensus and sat around their respective bonfires. The cold moon hung high in the sky, and the bonfire in the stream was the only source of warmth. The two of them unconsciously moved closer to the bonfire. In this strange land of death, the phoenix couldn't spread its wings, and the white flood dragon couldn't swim in shallow water. The two of them were losing their strength day by day, and their chances of leaving were getting smaller and smaller. Ning Chen was in a daze as he roasted the wolf meat in his hand. Everyone in the world knew about his tribulation. Had Senior and Wild come? And that Demoness Dai was probably worried about him. Oh, what's burnt? At that moment, an unpleasant smell of burnt meat wafted over. Ning Chen came back to his senses and hurriedly picked up the wolf meat in his hand. He looked at it and found that it was in good condition. It was yellow on the outside, and the fragrance was enticing. It fully reflected the master's good cooking skills. Ning Chen shifted his gaze to the other side. When he saw the strange red and black object in a certain demon's hand, he immediately grinned. As a former supreme being, The white flood dragon immediately sensed someone's gloating gaze. It raised its head, unable to suppress the anger in its eyes. Ningchen hurriedly tightened his grip on the wolf meat. This supreme being was as tasteless as it could get. He had to be careful. This time, the white flood dragon didn't try to snatch it. It silently lowered its head and reached out to pluck off the burnt meat bit by bit. Then it tore it open and put it into its mouth. Ningchen was stunned. He felt that something was wrong. It didn't match this demon's usual style. "Give me another half. I'll help you roast it," suggested Ningchen, trying to get more food for himself. The white flood dragon ignored him. It tore off the burnt meat in its hand without saying a word. "You take 60%. I'll take 40%. Ningchen took a step back. The white flood dragon still didn't say a word. It just silently ate the wolf meat. Ningchen didn't understand. When did this fellow become so tolerant? Normally, he would be thankful if it didn't try to snatch from him. What was going on tonight? One wolf leg. Ningchen continued probing. Half. The white flood dragon didn't say anything. It just sat in front of the bonfire in a frightening silence. Ningchen also stopped probing. As he swallowed the wolf meat, he glanced over from time to time. It wasn't that he was being too cautious, but that there was something wrong with a certain demon beast. That night, a certain someone even turned a blind eye to his rest, afraid that a certain demon god would come and slap him to death without him noticing. At daybreak, when Ningchen woke up, the first thing he saw was an otherworldly figure standing quietly under the first rays of the morning sun. It was extraordinary, as if it would break through the sky and fly away at any moment. However, this feeling only lasted for a moment. When the white flood dragon saw that someone had woken up, he immediately turned around and left. His otherworldly temperament immediately vanished. "Am I seeing things?" Ningchen patted his head. His strength was gone, and his brain wasn't as bright as before. No, Ningchen suddenly had an idea and jumped up. The feeling just now was very similar to Luo Shun's absolute command. Could it be that the demon venerable's cultivation had recovered? It doesn't look like it either. After thinking for a short while, Ningchen rejected this possibility. If the demon venerable had recovered his cultivation, he would have already slapped him into pieces and left this barren place. Moreover, that day in the primitive land, even when he was in the great hellfire tribulation, he didn't use the absolute command. Under such circumstances, hiding his strength would be courting death. It was meaningless. After eliminating the impossible reason, the only remaining possibility was, Ningchen knocked his head hard. It couldn't be. In just a few days, this guy had stepped into the absolute command domain? This was too infuriating. Why was it that everyone's talent was better than his? No, this guy wasn't human. However, should he go and broaden his horizons and learn as much as he could while he was at it? Thinking of this, Ningchen immediately chased in the direction that the demon venerable had left. The process of a supreme martial artist comprehending the absolute command was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. If he missed this opportunity, he wouldn't have another chance. On the other side of the mountain stream, the white flood dragon saw that someone had arrived. His face under the black veil suddenly frowned, and he walked away again. Unfortunately, he underestimated how thick-skinned a certain someone was. Wherever he went, that person followed him. "If you continue to follow me, I'll kill you," the white flood dragon said in a hoarse voice. "Ah, the road is so wide. You go your way and I'll go mine. Don't mind me." Ningchen showed a sincere smile and said in a very polite tone. The white flood dragon didn't waste any more words. He stomped his feet and rushed forward in a few breaths. He turned his palm and condensed yuan, slapping at a certain someone. Ningchen was shocked when he saw this. He hurriedly waved his sword to block the attack. However, with a bang, a huge force came, and he was immediately forced back a few steps. "Are you being reasonable? You followed me a few days ago, and stole so many things from me. I didn't even bother to argue with you." Ningchen suppressed the surging blood in his body, and said with an extremely angry expression, "Here's the wolf meat. Don't follow me anymore." The white flood dragon frowned and thought for a while. "That was originally mine. Besides, what if you ate it? Spit it out for me?" After saying this, Ning Chen disgusted himself. However, in order to see the process of a sovereign comprehending the law of words, it was worth it to be disgusted. Hearing the former's words, the white flood dragon clenched his fists. He hated this despicable human even more. The cooperation between a human and a monster that had been established with great difficulty last night was broken. Then the farce of one running and one chasing after the other played out once more. Boom! Dark clouds covered the horizon. Lightning flashed and thunder roared, covering the sky. Again, Ning Chen, who was so tired that he only had the strength to breathe, looked at the sky. It rained every 2 days. This was too much of a scam. A downpour came as soon as it said it would, and a certain someone was instantly drenched. However, the strange thing was that at this moment, not a single drop of rain fell from the white flood dragon's body. The raindrops all drifted away, avoiding him. Ning Chen's eyes slowly narrowed. Avoiding? It wasn't caused by true yuan, nor was it caused by pressure. It was as if the rain had a spirit, and was avoiding him on its own. Domain power? Damn it. Thinking of this, Ning Chen immediately ran. Behind him, the white flood dragon raised his hand. The downpour turned into water arrows and flew towards a certain someone. A heavy rain broke the balance of power that had been maintained all this time. In the rain, the red-clothed man ran wildly. Behind him, the rain arrows followed closely. The situation was dangerous. Slash. The sound of clothes tearing could be heard. The water arrows brushed past his shoulder. Ning Chen turned his body and waved his sword. The sword intent rose, and the strange power in the stream was instantly suppressed, erasing most of the power. With a bang, a certain someone was sent flying several feet away. Without any hesitation, he took the opportunity to turn around and run. A wise man knows better than to fight when the odds are against him. It was never too late for a gentleman to take revenge. If he didn't run now, he wouldn't even have the chance to take revenge in the future. The heavy rain this time seemed to be very long. After a quarter of an hour, the rain stopped and the sun was shining brightly. A certain someone ran to a high ground where there wasn't any water, within 100 feet radius. Only then did he sit down, panting heavily. He was so tired. This old monster was too ruthless. If he ran slower, he wouldn't be able to see the sun tomorrow. In the distance, the white flood dragon snorted unwillingly and turned around to leave. Ning Chen stretched out his arms and legs and lay down. He didn't chase after it. The rain would take a long time to subside. It was better for him to stay away from this monster. At night, after half a day, the rain had evaporated or seeped into the ground. Only then did Ning Chen dare to come down from the high ground to look for a certain monster. In front of the fire that was extinguished by the rain, the white flood dragon sat quietly. He looked at the cold moon in the sky. A faint brilliance could be seen around his body. His breath was calm and peaceful. It was completely different from how a certain someone saw it. Not long after, Ning Chen walked over. He looked at the former, and then looked at the moon in the sky. He couldn't see anything. The quiet atmosphere was a little cold. Unfortunately, the dead wood was damp and couldn't dry for a while. Ning Chen could only give up on the idea of starting a fire. He found a rock and sat down, trying to observe the movements of a certain monster. Under the moon, the blue and white brilliance around the cold shadow became clearer and clearer. Traces of water light shone, condensing the water vapor between heaven and earth. A strange light flashed in Ning Chen's eyes. Although it was still very weak, there was no doubt that it was the law of words. In that case, the strange force in the burial stream should be a kind of law power. That was why it suppressed cultivation and sword intent. On the contrary, it didn't have much effect on the law of words, which was also a law power. However, the burial stream looked no different from an ordinary stream. Was this law power originally there, or was it derived later? Time passed slowly. Ning Chen looked at the former and fell into deep thought. He thought of a way to get out, but it didn't seem to be easy. Whoosh! When the sky was about to brighten, an arrow with water ripples sped past. Without any warning, it shot towards a certain someone. Danger arrived. Ning Chen subconsciously leaned to the side. He saw a strand of black hair fall to the ground silently. "You perverted old monster, I didn't disturb you. Is there a need to kill me?" Ningchen suddenly jumped up and pointed at the former, angrily shouting. The white flood dragon came back to his senses and realized that the former was not far from him. He didn't explain anything about this coincidence. He got up and clenched his fists. Pervert old monster, very good. With a wave of his right hand, a watery light flew out from a stone pit not far away. It turned into a water arrow and flew directly towards the former. It's not raining now. Do you think I'm afraid of you? Ningchen waved his sword and cut the rain arrow. He was extremely angry. However, a certain someone forgot that even if it wasn't raining, he still couldn't defeat a certain demon. Even if the difference between them wasn't big, it was still lacking. As a result, a certain someone was beaten away again. Outside the burial stream, the situation in the central plains was getting more and more chaotic. The news that Mo Qingbai was taken away, and his martial arts were crippled, spread throughout the central plains in a few days. The world was shocked. The supreme expert who stood at the peak of the human world had always been the symbol of invincibility. It was hard to believe that his martial arts were crippled, and he was seriously injured and on the verge of death. Not long after, the news of Luotian's injury also spread. Only then did people notice that these two people seemed to be related to the shocking calamity in the primitive land. In a certain city in the Central Plains, the demonic butterfly was covered in blood. Her hair was a mixture of black and white. The once peerless broadsword god was on the verge of withering. He staggered with each step, and each step was stained with blood. Uncle, have you seen a young man in red? He looks very delicate. Chapter 473. Within the burial stream, the two irreconcilable humans and demons continued to fight. As time passed, the two of them became weaker and weaker, until they were about the same as ordinary people. As a result, when it wasn't raining, the order of their strength gradually changed. Another half a month passed. On a night after a heavy rain, a certain person with a sword in hand once again sought out a certain unarmed demon. After a great battle, he gained the upper hand for the first time. The white flood dragon's arm was injured by the sword and blood dripped from it. A certain person also didn't feel any better. A palm imprint had landed on his chest, causing him to be depressed for a long time. I have a way to get out. After the battle, Ningchen sat on the ground without a care for his image, panting as he spoke. The white flood dragon raised his head. A strange light flashed through his angry eyes as he waited for Ningchen to continue. First, swear that you'll take me out with you, Ningchen added. Also, once we get out, you can't cause trouble for me for a year. The white flood dragon coldly snorted and left, no longer paying attention to him. Ningchen was depressed. This old monster really wanted to kill him. He didn't even want the chance to get out. However, this matter couldn't be rushed. Even if he told him the method now, he couldn't get out. He had to wait a bit longer. He had to give this old monster some hope. Next time it rained, he would have to think twice before attacking, right? Ningchen was proud of his own wisdom. However, reality proved once again that he was overthinking things. 2 days later, a certain person fled for his life amidst the heavy rain. Behind him, the white flood dragon's attacks were even more ruthless. He didn't show the slightest mercy. You pervert, if I die, you can prepare to retire here. As a certain person fled, he still refused to admit defeat. The white flood dragon's expression sank. He waved his hand and condensed 100 water arrows that shot towards the certain person. Ningchen turned around and used his sword to lift up a large rock to block the water arrows. With a rumbling sound, the huge rock was shattered by the water arrows. Pervert! Ningchen cursed. He turned around and fled for his life. Just how much did this old monster hate him? Did he not care whether he could get out or not? Did he have to turn him into a hornet's nest before giving up? Fortunately, the rain at the burial stream didn't last long. After a quarter of an hour, the rain stopped and the sky cleared. A certain someone ran to the slope that extended from the sheer cliff, and finally escaped another calamity. The white flood dragon was furious, but it couldn't do anything to the despicable and shameless human in the distance. As long as there was no water, it would gradually lose its ability to deal with him. Come down, we'll discuss how to get out. The white flood dragon, who used to be pure and simple, began to learn how to scheme. He suppressed his anger and said, "Unfortunately, when it came to intelligence, a certain person was almost a monster." He saw through the former's little scheme with a single glance, and felt disdain for it. "I'm not in a hurry. We can discuss it at night," said Ning Chun as he sat on the high ground. "Not tonight. Let's do it now." The white flood dragon clenched its fists. "Not now. Let's do it at night." Ning Chun lied down and replied while panting, "Are you coming down or not?" The white flood dragon roared. "No," Ning Chun said directly. The battle between the man and the demon ended in failure once again. No one could do anything to the other. The white flood dragon went back to sulk, while a certain person lay on the rock and continued to pant. This short period of time became a portrayal of the next few days. The white flood dragon was getting closer and closer to comprehending the law of words. When it rained, a certain person was beaten up more and more miserably. However, as long as it didn't rain, a certain person would immediately get back at him. Time passed day by day. One day, when Ning Chun was secretly learning, he discovered that a certain demon could already barely control the water vapor between heaven and earth. Although he wasn't very proficient, it was obvious that he was already doing it. This discovery really gave a certain someone a fright. Without saying a word, he raised his sword and went up to fight, stopping a certain demon from continuing to comprehend the Tao. Thus, the man and the demon fought again. In the end, both sides were injured, and neither of them was in a good mood. With the interference of a certain sinister and cunning human, the white flood dragon was unable to focus on comprehending the power of law. The anger in its eyes was almost about to spurt out from behind the black veil, under its bamboo hat. "Let's discuss how to get out." Ning Chun leaned against the stone wall with his entire body aching. "Speak." The white flood dragon gritted its teeth and said, "Swear an oath first." "You already know the content, so I won't repeat it," said Ning Chun. "Don't even think about it," said the white flood dragon. "Then there's nothing to discuss. Have you rested enough? Let's continue fighting," said Ning Chun as he stood up with his sword. From that day onwards, the white flood dragon's path to comprehending the Tao was extremely bumpy. A certain person would occasionally come up to disturb it, sneak attack it, speak sarcastically, throw stones, and hit it with a stick. There was only one goal, and that was to prevent a certain demon from comprehending the power of law and peace. The white flood dragon was so angry that it wanted nothing more than to slap that certain person to pieces, but it was powerless. Thus, every time it rained, Ning Chun's days became even more difficult. The white flood dragon's time to comprehend the Tao became shorter and shorter, and it also had to be on guard against a certain person's sneak attacks. There were many times when it was about to touch the final barrier, but it was interrupted by a certain person and pulled down from the peak. "Swear it," said Ning Chun, fanning the flames. "Scram!" The white flood dragon couldn't hold back, and for the first time cursed. "Sigh, why bother?" Ning Chun lay on a rock and looked up at the stars. He muttered, "You're a demon sovereign. Once you go out, you'll have hundreds of people following you. It's not worth wasting time with me in this godforsaken place. Think about it. Once you leave, if you want to kill me, it'll be as easy as killing an ant. Even if you wait a year, it'll pass in the blink of an eye. It's only a year. No matter how hard I cultivate, there's no way I can beat you. How can you not understand such simple logic? Think about it carefully. Look at how easy it is to talk to me. I've always been reasonable with you. A gentleman uses his mouth, not his fists. Fighting won't solve anything." A certain person's words caused the white flood dragon to clench its fists. How could there be such a shameless person in this world? "Have you thought it through? What do you think?" asked Ning Chun when he saw that a certain demon hadn't moved. 10 days, said the white flood dragon abruptly. Ning Chun was stunned for a moment, but he quickly reacted. Disdain appeared in his eyes. "Do you think I'm stupid? If you keep following me for 10 days, you'll immediately kill me once the time is up. Then what's the point of me going out? At the very least, I'll be able to live longer here." 1 month. The white flood dragon took a step back. 1 year. Ning Chun didn't budge. 2 months. The white flood dragon took another step back. 1 year. Ningchen didn't budge. Half a year. If you don't agree, then there's no need to talk. Deal. Ningchen nodded decisively. How? Asked the white flood dragon. Swear an oath first. And so, the white flood dragon swore that the two of them would temporarily stop fighting. Once they left, they wouldn't cause trouble for a certain person for half a year. Only then did Ningchen relax and stand up. He eagerly walked over and sat down beside a certain demon. Tell me the method. The white flood dragon disdainfully sat away. The method is actually very simple. Can't you control the rain? Ningchen explained the method in detail. At the end he smiled. How is it? Is it reliable? The white flood dragon fell silent. Although this human was shameless, his method was indeed feasible. I'll go do my work. You continue to comprehend the power of laws. We'll split the work and work together. Neither of us will take advantage of the other. Ningchen patted his butt and stood up. He then walked away with his sword. It wasn't easy for them to come to an agreement. Next, they had to prepare to leave. It was rare for the white flood dragon to see Ningchen being so straightforward. It was a bit uncomfortable. After a moment, it shook its head and continued to comprehend the power of laws. Rumble. 2 days later, dark clouds covered the sky and heavy rain fell. The white flood dragon waved its hand and water dragons coiled around its body, swallowing the heavens and the earth. Its might was even more terrifying. In the distance, a certain person's figure couldn't be seen. All that could be seen were rocks and dirt flying out. It's such a good sword. If the ghost girl wakes up and finds out that I'm using her sword to dig a hole, she'll definitely kill me. Ningchen sighed as he used the sword to dig a hole. White flood dragon. Under the curtain of rain, Ningchen shouted in the mud pit. Hearing this, the white flood dragon was furious. It almost impulsively pushed the water dragons into the mud pit to kill a certain person. Demons were ruthless and cunning. However, compared to humans, they were always a little lacking, especially when a certain person was famous for being evil. Many things about the white flood dragon were tricked by a certain person without much effort. If you keep shouting, I'll kill you, the white flood dragon said angrily. It's just a name. Why are you so stingy? Ningchen replied casually in the mud pit. What's the matter? The white flood dragon didn't want to be entangled in this matter anymore. Oh right. Ningchen just remembered that he had something to say. He raised his head and shouted, Get the water out of the pit first. It's all water. How can I dig? At the same time, in Chiua City, the last city in the east of the Mizar dynasty, Butterfly appeared. For more than a month, it had been running around all day, looking for knowing destiny. Behind it, Zhao Liusu followed closely. She didn't dare to leave. Her delicate face became more and more anxious. The small flower lanterns on their waists rang very softly. If one didn't listen carefully, it would be hard to hear. Miss, have you seen? Before she even finished speaking, Butterfly covered its mouth and coughed violently. Blood seeped out from between its fingers and dripped down. The girl in front of it immediately walked away in fright, not daring to stay for even a moment longer. Sister Butterfly, don't keep looking. If you don't rest, your body will be completely destroyed. Zhao Liusu hurried forward to support her. Soon, I'll find him soon. Hua Zhongdia struggled to push away the woman beside her, looked around, and then staggered forward. Big brother Ning, where are you? Sister Butterfly can't hold on much longer. Zhao Liusu's eyes were filled with tears. The azure bird appeared in front of Yiqingqiu, at the pavilion, in the middle of the lake in the academy. However, Butterfly didn't respond. She was still unable to confirm his whereabouts. Academy head. A white-robed young man appeared beside the lake and respectfully greeted. Have you found him? Yiqingqiu's eyes flashed with a trace of worry. Not yet. Scholar has personally gone out to look for him. He'll send news back as soon as possible, said the white-robed young man. All right, you can leave for now. Yiqingqiu sighed and waved her hand. Yes. Chapter 474. Boom! Above the burial stream, heavy rain poured down. In the stream, it was another sleepless day and night. The white flood dragon had reached the most critical moment in comprehending the law of speech. In the distance, a certain person's pit was getting bigger and bigger, and there was not even a shadow to be seen. White flood dragon, there's more water, move out a little. In the pit, a certain person's voice came out again. Hearing that, the white flood dragon no longer had the leisure to argue with the former about how to address him. With a wave of his hand, the rainwater in the mud pit rolled out and knocked the certain person down. Pa! Ningchen got up and spat out 2 mouthfuls of mud. He raised his head and said angrily, "Can't you be more careful?" The white flood dragon ignored him and continued to comprehend in the rain. Waves of water rolled and kept changing shape. Sometimes it was like a rock spreading its wings, and sometimes it was like a dragon coming out of the sea. The rumbling of thunder reverberated in the sky. The rain gradually lessened. Around the white flood dragon, the 100 forms dissipated, and the ripples of water also gradually dissipated. "Go out when it rains next time," the white flood dragon said, and immediately turned around and walked to the other side. In the central heavenly court of the Mizar dynasty, the primitive emperor stood quietly and looked at the 3 figures kneeling in front of him. "Kill." Yes. The 3 princes received the order and immediately got up and left. 400 miles outside of Chiyu City, the butterfly was moving forward. Its white feet were now stained with blood, and it was difficult to move forward. It was at a loss and had no goal. Zhao Liusu followed behind, and her eyes did not dare to leave the former for a moment. She was very anxious. She could feel that Sister Dai could not hold on any longer. At this moment, there was a sudden change. In all directions, black-clothed figures appeared. On the road ahead, 3 figures walked out. The 3 princes of the Mizar dynasty had appeared. "Miss Liusu, we were ordered to bring you back." The first prince, Yi Chaohui, walked out and said calmly. Seeing the 3 of them, Zhao Liusu's mood sank. She looked at the butterfly in the flower in front of her worriedly and said, "I'll go back with you, but you can't do anything to Sister Dai." "Sorry. Father ordered that the butterfly in the flower must die," Yi Chaohui said lightly. "Is it my grandfather's order? I'll go back and beg him now," Zhao Liusu said anxiously. "It's too late." Yi Chaohui waved his hand and said coldly, "Kill." With a single order, the 3 crown princes of Mizar led their armies and pressed forward, their battle cries shaking the heavens. Bing was like a surging wave in the sky, burying flowers in the underworld. A blade as black as ink. Wherever the blade passed, blood filled the sky. The red spear soared through the sky, valiant and skilled in battle. Every spear was deadly, and every move was soul-stealing. The 13th prince's extraordinary martial spirit appeared again. He waved his spear and blocked the path of the saber god. On the other side, Yi Chaohui waved his 2 swords and coldly said, "Quickly take your life." The 2 crown princes joined the battle. The exhausted butterfly in the flower was still fighting bravely like a god. Her saber was like a rainbow, and she did not fall into a disadvantage. At this moment the 9th prince, who was watching the battle from the side, raised his hand and summoned wind and thunder. The halberd unleashed a mighty force in all directions. The profound gold-heavy halberd pierced through the air and fell down. Immediately, the heavens and earth lost their balance, and the earth cracked and the mountains shook. Bang! The saber and halberd collided. Blood gushed out of Hua Zhongdia's arm, but she still didn't back off. She turned her saber around and faced the halberd head-on. The butterflies danced, and the red spear blocked her path. The 2 swords followed behind. The 3 crown princes' moves were ruthless and ruthless. Every move was meant to end all future troubles. The 3 crown princes took turns fighting, and the army followed behind. The intense battle caused blood to fill the sky. The butterflies danced and killed. Seeing that the opponent was still fighting bravely, the 9th prince waved his hand, and 2 figures appeared in the army. The sound of a flute rang out, and the fog scattered. With the 2 poisons in her body, Hua Zhongdia immediately stumbled and nearly fell. "Sister Dai, be careful," Zhao Liusu quickly warned when she saw the situation. Before Zhao Liusu finished speaking, the tip of the spear tore through her blue clothes, bringing out a splash of blood. Hua Zhongdia pulled back her saber, forcing her opponent back. However, She felt that her eyes and ears were gradually losing their hearing. In the blink of an eye, the scene in front of her and the sound in her ears all disappeared. Now that she had lost her hearing and was in a silent world, Hua Zhongdia had no one to rely on. She could only trust the saber in her hand. Her killing intent was stimulated, and she used the flower burial horizontal slash. Severed limbs flew everywhere. The saber's intuition didn't care about who it was. Anyone that came close would be killed. The saber god truly lives up to his name. Yi Chaohui took 2 steps back and waved his hand. Groups of black-clothed men carrying heavy crossbows appeared, and a rain of arrows shot through the air. Sensing the incoming danger, Butterfly in the flower waved her saber and blocked the incoming crossbow bolts. Another sound of clothes being torn rang out, and the arrows brought out a splash of black blood before stabbing into the ground far away. Ugh! The poison flared up, and Hua Zhongdia stumbled and vomited another mouthful of black blood. Her injuries hadn't healed, and she was poisoned. She couldn't spread her wings. The saber god had reached the end of her road. After the rain of arrows, the army surrounded her once more, and the 3 crown princes attacked even more fiercely. Dance of the butterflies calm. Feeling the danger, Hua Zhongdia knew that she was at the end of the road. She wrapped her saber in her sleeves, and a white saber appeared from within the flower burial sword. Countless black-clothed men were beheaded, and Hua Zhongdia used all her strength to leave the battlefield. Chase! Yi Chaohui waved his hand. As the order was given, streaks of black light streaked across the sky. One after another, black-robed men rushed out and gave chase. Yi Hongnian and the 9th crown prince also turned into streaks of light, chasing after Hua Zhongdia. Thunder rumbled in the burial stream. The 2 of them had waited for several days, and now it was raining heavily once more. This time, the rain was shockingly heavy, and the rumbling of thunder resounded through the entire stream. Ning Chen had dug several large pits that had already contained quite a bit of rainwater. Now that there was a rare downpour, they all overflowed. "It's done," said Ning Chen. The white flood dragon nodded and waved his right hand, and the water in the pits surged into the sky. Flying waterfall. As soon as the words were spoken, the world became boundless. An enormous waterfall rushed into the 9 heavens, hanging upside down for tens of thousands of zhang. It was a shocking scene, shocking the world. "Let's go." The white flood dragon grabbed the arm of the person next to him and stepped onto the waterfall. Rain poured in from all directions, constantly replenishing the water vapor in the waterfall. Time was of the essence, and they couldn't afford the slightest delay. The 2 of them sped up into the sky. Boom! Thunder streaked across the sky, and as time passed, the rain gradually became lighter. Above the waterfall, the water vapor dissipated faster and faster, and the rain was gradually unable to replenish it. Seeing this, the white flood dragon's heart sank. It knew it couldn't hesitate any longer, and with a roar, it transformed into a dragon. In the next moment, a pure white flood dragon spiraled out of the sky. It swept past a dumbfounded person, pierced through the waterfall, and soared into the sky. After a dozen breaths of time, a white light rushed out of the stream and landed on the edge of the cliff. After transforming, it threw the person to the side. Mist curled around it, covering its body. The white flood dragon, who had recovered its cultivation, looked at the human in front of it. It had to restrain itself many times before suppressing the urge to slap him to death. Ning Chen stood up and carefully examined himself. After finding that he wasn't injured, he gave the white flood dragon the middle finger and turned to leave. "Wait," said the white flood dragon coldly. Ning Chen immediately stopped and turned around. "You swore to wait for half a year. You can't have forgotten that so quickly, right? What a coward." The white flood dragon snorted. "Give me a trace of phoenix origin, and I'll wait a month before killing you." Ning Chen immediately turned and left. Did the white flood dragon think he was stupid? He couldn't beat this fellow in the first place. If he gave it a trace of phoenix origin, wouldn't he be tortured to death when they met in the future? 2 months, bargained the white flood dragon. Ning Chen continued walking, pretending he hadn't heard anything. 3 months. The white flood dragon continued to raise the price. Ningchen walked even faster. He was just short of running. Half a year. There was a trace of anger in the white flood dragon's voice. Ningchen prepared to run. I have a request, said the white flood dragon through clenched teeth. Ningchen turned and walked back. Why didn't the white flood dragon say so earlier? You're not allowed to chase after me for half a year, said Ningchen decisively. That's not possible. Other than that, as long as I can do it, said the white flood dragon. Ningchen turned and left. There was nothing to talk about. It's better if you don't agree. At most, I'll wait for half a year. At that time, I'll kill you and all of your phoenix origin will be mine, sneered the white flood dragon. When Ningchen heard this, he stopped in his tracks and walked back again. Deal. Tactful. The white flood dragon's lips curled into a cold smile. With the phoenix origin, helping him cultivate was secondary. The main thing was that no matter where this despicable human ran to in half a year, he wouldn't be able to escape from its grasp. Ningchen didn't know that a certain monster had such an ability. He reluctantly handed over a drop of its origin blood and turned to leave. This time he didn't look back. The white flood dragon looked at the drop of phoenix blood in its hand. It had actually profited from this disaster. It had unexpectedly comprehended the law of words. It had been worth it. Of course, if it didn't have this treacherous human by its side, it would be even better. In addition, it was also time to pay back the palm that the human chosen had given it. Academy Lake Pavilion. Yi Qingqiu stood in the middle of the pavilion, her expression growing more and more worried. At this moment, the azure bird flew over and left a message. Yi Qingqiu's expression changed. The scholar had found traces of the butterfly within the flower. However, her situation didn't seem very good. It could even be said that she was in a very dangerous situation. She was in the middle of a tribulation, and had already fallen deeply into the demonic path. If she couldn't survive, she would be lucky to have her cultivation crippled. As for whether or not she could keep her life, no one knew. Compared to that, the more pressing problem was that since the academy could find traces of the butterfly within the flower, it meant that other people would also be able to find her. Elder Qi, the butterfly within the flower is in danger. I'll have to trouble you to go and bring her back as soon as possible. Thinking of this, Yi Qingqiu immediately sent a voice transmission. At the entrance of the academy, the old man guarding the gate opened his eyes. He immediately stood up and solemnly nodded. The old man moved, but just as he was about to leave, a red light streaked across the sky and appeared in front of the academy. Seeing that person, the old man's footsteps paused. He was shocked. In the next moment, the old man came back to his senses and said, "Quickly go save the butterfly within the flower. If you don't hurry, it might be too late." You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support. And don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.